Chapter 789. In this case, how or must be going to save Wan Qin alone? Qin Laosi guessed. That's too dangerous. How can this child go alone? Qin Shilong was extremely anxious. And if Uncle Xian doesn't wake up, I can't leave Jinling City. As a father, I can't appear in front of my daughter immediately. Chun Kang was very upset. He clenched his fists, but he really had no choice. He had to follow Qin Hao's instructions. He couldn't take the lives of Dan Xian and the drunkard as a joke. Otherwise, these years of waiting would be in vain. Qin Hao's painstaking efforts to refine the 9 Revolutions soul return pill would be in vain. For Dan Xian, even if he was anxious, he had to stay in Jinling City. This should be Hao Er's plan. What a silly child. But with his help, Brother Kang, you can rest assured. If even Hao can't save Wan Qin, it's useless for us to go. We may hinder Hao Er's actions and drag him down. At present, I only hope that Senior Dan Xian can take the 9 Revolutions soul return pill. He can wake up as soon as possible, and then we can rush to Luo Shui. By the way, Second Master, please. Huh? Where's Second Master? Qin Laosi turned around and found that the old demon was gone. At the same time, outside Jinling City, a monstrous green wind was raging in the air, madly blowing in the direction of Luo Shui. When the letter was found, in fact, the old demon had already guessed this result. He had already set off to chase Qin Hao. Qin Laosi instantly understood this point. At this time, if Second Master is chasing Hao he will have more confidence in rescuing Wan Qin. Everyone, what we have to do now is to quickly take the 9 Revolutions soul return pill to I Soul Hall and give it to Senior Dan Xian. In this regard, everyone nodded. In an instant, with the 9 Revolutions soul return pill, they turned into streamers and flew to Fengli Temple. The I Soul Hall was in Fengli Temple. It was very exciting to think about it. If Dan Xian woke up immediately after taking it, then, in fact, Qin Hao also wanted to see Dan Xian wake up in front of him. However, he had no choice and could not afford to waste any time. After all, he had to meet up with Yi Shuihan and Shin Tianfeng before he could save them. Then, he would contact Yao Lao and ask the elders in Qiangbin for help. In addition, there was another extremely urgent matter to attend to. This urgent matter was the key to Qin Hao's victory over Tian Daoyuo. It was the trump card that would allow him to win by surprise. Half a month later, Star Moon Academy. The entire Star Moon Academy was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Fresh flowers were everywhere, and there was an endless stream of celebrities and experts. The atmosphere was even busier and more festive than the new year. Today was the biggest ceremony in the history of the Academy. President Tian Shulin was going to get married. However, the person he was going to marry was the #1 goddess in the hearts of the disciples of the Academy, Chen Wan Qin. This was really exciting and infuriating. When they thought that Chen Wan Qin, who was known as the Ice Snow Fairy, was going to marry Tian Shulin, who had a face full of wrinkles, those male disciples who boasted that they were incomparably handsome felt sad. But who could be blamed for this? The groom for today's wedding was supposed to be Tian Boguang. Tian Boguang's arrogant and self-righteous attitude made the disciples of the Academy very unhappy. However, he was still a young man and had the right to be proud. Unfortunately, Tian Boguang was dead. Hence, President Tian was so angry that he did such a ridiculous thing. Other than feeling pity for Chen Wan Qin's unbearable fate, the first person these male disciples hated was Qin Hao. If Qin Hao had not killed Tian Boguang, Goddess Wan Qin would not have been forced to marry an old man. Moreover, Qin Hao did not only kill Tian Boguang, but also the top disciples of the Wild Dragon Academy and the 10 Directions Academy. In this way, the most outstanding juniors of this era all belonged to the Qiangbin family. Qin Hao is too arrogant. Yeah, you better not come today. Otherwise, Tu Qiang'o, will be the first to not let him go. Because my brother, Tu Wantu, was one of the members of the most luxurious Starry Moon Academy team that he killed. A Starry Moon Academy disciple angrily roared, feeling as if Qin Hao had killed his own father. What a coincidence. I will also be the first to not let Qin Hao go. In fact, my future brother-in-law also died in Qin Hao's hands. At this time, a Wild Dragon Academy disciple wearing a golden robe with a dragon head embroidered on his chest spoke with righteous indignation. He hated Qin Hao even more. Originally, he was about to win the girl's heart, but his girlfriend's brother died, and the whole family held a funeral. In a depressed mood, he broke up with this miserable classmate. Me too. I, Feng Xuanxiang, have long disliked Qin Hao. If he dares to come here today, I won't even need the 3 headmasters to do anything. I'll just wave my spears and kill Qin Hao in front of everyone. As the saying goes, those who want to watch the fun don't mind making it big. Just as the disciples of the 3 great academies were discussing, a guy with a face full of beard, who came from an unknown sect, also began to boast in an overconfident manner. Today was Tian Shulin's wedding. Not only did he invite the disciples of the 3 academies, but he also invited more than 100 famous sect masters and headmasters from all over Western Lyon. In addition to the servants brought by the sect masters and headmasters, it could be said that fish and dragons were mixed together. At this moment, after passing through the seating area of the ordinary disciples, along the straight stone path, through the inner court area, they arrived at the most sacred inner court of Starry Moon Academy. Tian Shulin was wearing a red groom's robe, and his face was full of joy as he received the various sect masters, as well as the headmasters of Wild Dragon Academy and 10 Directions Academy. They whispered to each other, and their faces were gloomy from time to time. They looked like a group of villains colluding with each other. I have to say, although Senior Tian is old, wearing the wedding groom's clothes is still as handsome as when he was young. Isn't that nonsense? I don't think any of the 17 or 18-year-old disciples outside can be more handsome than Senior Tian. Senior Tian and Fairy Wanqin are really a match made in heaven. It makes me envious. In fact, if I had a daughter, I would also want to marry her to Senior Tian. That's right. I didn't bring my wife here today because I was afraid that my wife would go crazy after seeing how handsome Senior Tian is. These sect masters and headmasters from all over the world, under the pressure of Tian Shulin, began to shamelessly flatter him. They were simply speaking against their conscience. However, Tian Shulin didn't care whether they were telling the truth or not. After all, these flattery were very useful and made people feel very happy. Involuntarily, the pride on his face became even stronger. It was as if after listening to these words, he became dozens of years younger again. Sect masters and headmasters, you flatter me. Old man's handsomeness has long been obvious to the people of Western Lyon. To be honest, as early as 50 years ago, I was recognized by the people as the most handsome person in Western Lyon. Although I'm old now, when I shave my beard, I'll definitely kill all kinds of little fresh meat. Tian Shulin said shamelessly. Brother Tian's words are true. Today is your wedding day. This little brother will present a set of treasured armor from Quanglong Academy to celebrate. I wish you and sister-in-law Wanqin to have a child soon and have many children and grandchildren. Below the wedding stage. First of all, there were 3 domineering seats on the first table. At this time, there were only 2 people sitting at this seemingly largest table. They were the Dean of Quanglong Academy and the Dean of Shifeng Academy. The third seat was obviously prepared for the commander of the Whitewater Corps. After all, the 3 of them, plus Tian Shulin himself, were the strongest lineup today. Whether it was identity, status, or cultivation, it was not an exaggeration to say that they represented Western Lyon. At this time, hearing the words of the Quanglong Academy's dean, the others stood up nervously at the same time, all wanting to see the treasured armor given by the other party. Chapter 790. The Wild Dragon Academy's dean smirked as he took out a set of armor and presented it to Tian Shulin with both hands. This was a set of scarlet gold chainmail that emitted traces of fire. There was also a gold-plated tiger helmet that looked majestic and domineering. Oh my God, is this the Purgatory Tiger Scale Armor? Rumor has it that the Purgatory Tiger Scale Armor was one of the 3 legendary armors of Western Lyon in the past. Its defense can't even be broken by low-level Yuan venerates. When worn by a monarch, it's practically invincible against anyone below the Yuan Venerate level. I never imagined that the Purgatory Tiger Scale armor would be kept by the Wild Dragon Academy's dean and given to Chief Dean Tian so generously. How generous! Everyone present was shocked as they exclaimed one after another. Tian Shulin was also stunned. Actually, he had long known that the Purgatory Tiger Scale armor was hidden in the Wild Dragon Academy and had wanted to exchange it for other things more than once. Unfortunately, he had been rejected by the Wild Dragon Academy's dean every time. However, this time, the other party had actually been so generous as to give it to him for free, which surprised Tian Shulin greatly. He couldn't help but clench his fists and mutter. If Bo Guang was still alive, this armor would have been tailor-made for him. He wouldn't have to worry about defeating that little bastard Qin. How if he wore the Purgatory Tiger Scale armor? How hateful! With anger rising from the bottom of his heart, he waved his hand and ordered Elder Xingyu, who was beside him, to take the armor. The Purgatory Tiger Scale armor is indeed an ultimate treasure below the Venerate level. However, the 10 Directions Academy's God-slaying Brilliant Sky Spear isn't bad either. Today, I'll give this spear to Brother Tian. I wish you and sister-in-law Wan Xin a long and happy life together, with many children and grandchildren. While everyone was deeply shocked by the Purgatory Tiger Scale armor, the 10 Directions Academy's dean threw out another bombshell that made the frenzied atmosphere reach its peak. He also had a cold smile on his face. With a flash of his hand, a 9-foot-long divine spear appeared in his hand. This divine spear emitted a purple-gold glow and had 3 forks at the spearhead, which looked like a harpoon. Although its appearance wasn't very beautiful, the terrifying aura it exuded made people shudder. That extremely cold, murderous aura made people feel as though they were frozen, even from a distance. The god-killing brilliant heavenly spear. Oh my god, that's the legendary divine soldier of Western Liang. It's even better than the Purgatory Tiger Scale armor. It is said that when the brilliant sky spear was first forged, due to its great fame, the second-ranked owner of the weapon ranking board was not convinced, so he used the headless ghost god saber to compete with the brilliant sky spear. In the end, the headless ghost divine blade was split into 2 by the brilliant heaven spear, and the power of the spear shattered the headless ghost divine blade. From then on, no one dared to underestimate the might of the brilliant heaven spear, and it established the brilliant heaven spear's position as the #1 weapon. To this day, no divine soldier can shake its position as the overlord. Headmaster Shi Fang is truly bold. This time, he's really bleeding a lot. Exclamations that were even more shocking than the Purgatory Tiger Scale armor immediately came from the crowd. This time, even Tian Shulin laughed heartily. He hurriedly thanked Chief Dean Shi Fang with an incomparably courteous attitude. With a wave of his hand, he ordered an elder to accept the Huang Tian spear. However, some sharp-eyed people noticed that when Tian Shulin smiled, his eyes were actually tearing up. Some people guessed that he was most likely thinking of that grandson of his who was so proud of his aptitude. If Tian Boguang had held this brilliant sky spear, known as the #1 weapon on the Western Liang weapon ranking board, he might not have died at the hands of Qin Hao. On the contrary, the person who would have died should have been Qin Hao. Actually, giving away these 2 treasures was completely premeditated by Headmaster Shi Fang and the Mad Dragon Academy's headmaster. They just wanted to see Tian Shulin's bitter and indignant expression, to make him feel deeply sorry for his grandson. Only in this way would Tian Shulin be determined to fight to the end. After all, the 10 Directions battle team had been destroyed by Qin Hao, the Mad Dragon Academy's headmaster's son. That mysterious golden-robed man had also died at the hands of Qin Hao. However, at this moment, the Mad Dragon Academy's headmaster still didn't know that his son had actually been replaced by Yi Shuihan, who had replaced the mysterious golden-robed man to participate in the competition in the Medicine Valley. Actually, old man, I understand your intentions. Don't worry. If Qin Hao comes today, I'll definitely make it so that he won't be able to return. Moreover, after the old man and Wan Xin finish bowing to heaven and earth, I'll kill my way to Qiangbin and take boss Yao Lao's head. Tian Shulin had already guessed their intentions. The other party didn't have good intentions at all by giving away such precious treasures. They were clearly deliberately provoking him. However, he had to admit that they had succeeded. At this moment, they had completely aroused Tian Shulin's monstrous killing intent. If he didn't kill Yao Lao, this anger wouldn't be quelled. In this regard, Headmaster Shi Fong and the Mad Dragon Academy's headmasters smiled at each other and silently sat back in their chairs. They were finally at ease. Once Xing Yue and Qi Yang fought, the two of them would be the ones to benefit in the end. Next, let's invite all the guests and Western Liang's headmasters to taste the sumptuous meal prepared by our Xing Yue Academy. Suddenly, a young voice sounded in the hall. The voice was very elegant and full of nobility, with a natural arrogance. At some point, a young man in a purple robe had appeared beside Tian Shulin. This young man looked to be about 25 years old. A crescent moon was embroidered on the chest of his purple robe, but in the middle of the crescent moon was a sharp sword. It was as if this sharp sword had come from the sky and could even destroy the moon. Who is this person? What a noble aura! And his cultivation is unfathomable. It makes me feel a sense of fear. But why haven't I seen him in the academy? At this time, some Xing Yue's disciples were puzzled. Are you stupid? This unfathomable young man is not wearing clothes from our academy, and the style is not even from Western Liang. How could you have seen him before? Someone replied. Could he be Headmaster Tian's son, the super genius who went to the northern frontier 20 years ago and was chosen by the great Yin Empire's top academy, Zhanyuan Mansion, Senior Tian Daluo? Someone pointed at the young man who appeared beside Tian Shulin on the wedding stage. In response, most of the headmasters who came from afar shook their heads. Judging from Tian Daluo's age, this young man was definitely not him. Moreover, some of the people present actually knew Tian Daluo. After all, 20 years ago, Tian Daluo's halo was very dazzling. He was even more talented than the deceased Tian Buguang. Perhaps only the current Qi Yang's Qin Hao could be compared to Tian Daluo in terms of reputation. In an instant, this young man in a purple robe with an extraordinary aura aroused the curiosity of tens of thousands of people. They were all guessing where this person came from and why he appeared at Tian Shulin's wedding. Old master, it looks like I have to introduce myself. In response, the young man smiled and glanced at Tian Shulin. Tian Shulin nodded approvingly. When he saw this person, it was as if he saw his grandson was still alive. He immediately gestured for the young man to quickly introduce himself. Everyone, my name is Qiandao. I'm from the Zhanyuan Mansion in the northern frontier. My master is the great elder of the Zhanyuan Mansion, Headmaster Tian's son, Tian Daluo. Chapter 791. Qiandao was the second eldest disciple of the Zhanyuan Mansion. At the same time, he was also Tian Daluo's direct disciple. He was very famous in the entire Zhanyuan Mansion and even the entire Great Yin Empire. He had all kinds of champion titles and was not inferior to Qin Hao. Tian Shulin was getting married today. Logically speaking, the people of the Zhanyuan Mansion should have been present. Due to special reasons, Tian Daluo was delayed by other things, so he arranged for his eldest disciple to preside over the wedding. Besides, Qiandao had a mission. In fact, before he came, he was specially called to the palace and received by the current crown prince, Murong Zijuan. Some time ago, Murong Zijuan had arranged for two people to kill Qin Hao. However, they did not return and there was no news of them. Qiandao was sent by Murong Zijuan to investigate the whereabouts of those two people. However, there was no need to investigate now. Qiandao was almost certain that those two people were already dead, because Qin Hao was still alive and had killed Tian Buguang, who was cultivating in the Zhanyuan Mansion. Qiandao was slightly shocked when he heard the news. He had personally experienced Tian Buguang's strength. If he did not use his full strength, he could almost fight Qiandao, the second eldest disciple of the Zhanyuan Mansion, on par with him. However, he did not expect Tian Buguang to lose to Qin Hao. At this moment, Qiandao was looking forward to Qin Hao's arrival, because if he killed Qin Hao, not only would he be praised by his master, but he would also be rewarded by Murong Zijuan. A reward from the crown prince would definitely be a rare treasure. So, you don't have to be surprised by my identity. Perhaps my identity is indeed a little high for the poor people of Western Liang, but I don't mind. After all, my master is from Western Liang, Qiandao said with a friendly face and a smile on his face. However, this smile was filled with strong disdain. After he revealed his identity, he did not even bother to look at the admiration of the disciples of the three major academies in the Luo Shui imperial city. He felt that the admiration of those female disciples was an insult. In response, the whole place fell silent. No one dared to say anything. Although House Killblade said that he didn't mind interacting with the crowd, his aura was so oppressive that the sect masters couldn't even raise their heads. The people of Xiliang were born with a sense of inferiority in front of the people of Beijiang. What's there to be cocky about? You're just a kid who hasn't even grown his hair yet. When I was powerful, you were still in your mother's womb. Someone couldn't stand Sha Qianma's indifferent and disdainful gaze and mumbled. This was an old man who sat in a distinguished seat in the inner pavilion. His name was Shuang Chuanxiu, and he was the sect master of 7 Kills Hall. He was a powerful level 8 Yuan monarch. A level 8 Yuan monarch was considered a top-notch expert in the entire Western Liang. However, as soon as he spoke, everyone broke out in cold sweat. Then, the cold sweat turned into fear. Qiandao's ears were sharp. After hearing this, he squinted his eyes and looked in Shuang Chuanxiu's direction. He raised his hand and sent a wave of vital energy towards Shuang Chuanxiu. Bang! Shuang Chuanxiu didn't even have time to scream before he was blasted into minced meat. Bloody mist splattered all over the people around him. It was a terrifying sight. It seems like the sect master of 7 Kills Hall has a lot of opinions about me. I believe that after this move, the various sect masters won't question my status as the second disciple of Zhanyue Mansion anymore, right? Qiandao sneered indifferently and acted very casually. It was as though killing a level 8 Yuan monarch with a gentle wave of his hand was a very normal thing. SSS. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Someone couldn't help but exclaim, "A peak Yuan monarch of the extreme grade." That's right. Qiandao's cultivation had indeed reached the peak of the Yuan monarch level and was just a little bit away from breaking through to the venerate grade. Furthermore, the various sect masters present weren't mediocre people. They could clearly feel that the vital energy that Qiandao had used to kill Shuang Chuanxiu was mixed with the power of the origin soul. Based on this, they could guess that Sha Qianma was in essence soul realm genius. If he used his full strength, no one below the Yuan Venerate level would be a match for him. Even a level 1 Yuan Venerate might not be a match for him. Furthermore, this person was only about 25 years old. What kind of terrifying strength was this? Zhanyue Mansion was indeed the overlord of the northern border. It wasn't something that the sect of Western Liang could compare to. Even the 4 great academies of Luo Shui, which were known as the strongest nation, couldn't find a disciple more powerful than Qiandao. Qiandao had claimed that he was only the second disciple of Zhanyue Mansion's inner court. Then, how terrifyingly strong was the first person? Just thinking about it made everyone break out in a cold sweat. Everyone, don't be nervous. Everyone is a guest. If you are obedient, Old Man won't make things difficult for you. However, if anyone is spouting nonsense, then Shuang Chuanxiu of 7 Kills Hall will be the best outcome. Tian Shulin smiled appreciatively. He was very satisfied with Qiandao's intimidating effect. In fact, even he felt that Qiandao's potential was too terrifying. Even his most prideful grandson, Tian Buguang, would lose his brilliance if he stood in front of Qiandao. Good technique. You are indeed a disciple of Zhanyue Mansion. You have really opened my eyes. Ha ha ha. Suddenly, a rough and unrestrained laughter was heard. Then, a burly man in a mighty armor walked into the most luxurious VIP area of the inner court. He sat down beside the Dean of Quanglong and the Dean of Shifang. The sect masters didn't dare to say anything about this burly man's entrance. Even the elders of Xingyue School didn't dare to stop him. Because this man was Yi Longquan, the commander of the Whitewater Army, the first army of Luo Shui Empire. Junior Kill 1,000 Blades greets, Great General Yi. Qiandao smiled and cupped his hands at Yi Longquan. Firstly, he was responding to the compliment. Secondly, Yi Longquan's cultivation was not low. It was very likely that he was not inferior to Tian Shulin. The strong should be respected by the younger generation. Of course, Qiandao only cupped his hands and didn't show too much affection. Yi Longquan waved his hand. No need to be so polite. Since everyone is here, let's start the wedding. I can't wait. While speaking, Yi Longquan clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. His face didn't look good. He had brought the entire army here. He wanted to intimidate everyone and let his dead son see how powerful his father was. In addition, he wanted to lead the Whitewater Army to slaughter Qiangbin. But in the end, he was blocked by the Imperial City Army under the command of the 4 commanders. As soon as they met, Jiang Zhengxiong, that black-faced thief, ordered 10,000 arrows to be shot and told the army to call Yi Longquan a traitor. This scared Yi Longquan. He immediately got off his horse and kowtowed to the city gate 1,000 times. In the end, Jiang Zhengxiong let him in alone. But Yi Longquan's spatial ring and sword were all turned over by Jiang Zhengxiong. He said that he would only return them the moment Yi Longquan left the city. Otherwise, he would be disregarding the power of the Dragon Abyss Emperor and be a traitor. Yi Longquan was helpless. He cursed Jiang Zhengxiong's ancestors 10,000 times. After handing over his invincible sword and spatial ring, he entered the city alone. What he wanted now was to quickly start the wedding. Chapter 792. Regarding Yi Longquan's rude intrusion into the wedding banquet, Tian Shulin and Qiandao looked at each other and smiled, not feeling dissatisfied. Yi Longquan's feelings could be understood. The 3 deans and the army commander, which one of them didn't have a dead son or grandson. This heavy mood, the urge to kill Qin Hao, everyone felt the same. Qiandao had a faint smile, waved his hand, and shouted according to Yi Longquan's request. Let's invite the bride to enter and bow to heaven and earth with our handsome groom. Along with the shout, the spectacular scene of close to 100,000 people caused an uproar. It was rumored that Chen Wanqin was a rare beauty. No one knew how beautiful she would be after putting on a wedding dress. Everyone stared at the wedding stage without blinking, waiting for the bride to arrive. Then a red figure wearing a wedding dress and a phoenix crown appeared from the backstage, the pearl on the phoenix crown sparkling. It was Chen Wanqin. When she appeared, everyone's heart seemed to stop beating. That beautiful face that could make people lose their minds. The sect masters were like a group of dementia patients. Although Chen Wanqin didn't have any makeup, that natural beauty of her face, in an instant, crushed all the female disciples of the 3 great academies. Even after Clearblade saw this, he couldn't help being stunned. After a while, he let out a sigh. Such a beautiful woman. No wonder Tian Boguang went crazy for her. In order to obtain the demonic, martial, arrogant source spirit, he endured the torture of being cut to pieces and finally paid with his life. This was also the first time Qiandao saw Chen Wanqin compared to the princes and marquises of the Great Yin Empire. Even the princesses of the Great Yin Empire, Chen Wanqin could be called an absolute goddess. At this moment, she was very calm, walking slowly. Behind her, there were 4 fierce-looking women in tight clothes, as if they were detaining a criminal. Obviously, Chen Wanqin was very unwilling, but it seemed like someone had something on her, so she had to bow to heaven and earth with Tian Shulin. Imperceptibly, it caused everyone to sigh and feel pity. Such a beautiful woman marrying Tian Shulin. It's really... AI, what a waste. Lower your voice. Do you want to die? If Principal Tian hears this, the consequences will be the same. Although the crowd expressed their sympathy, no one dared to stand on the stage and stop them. Wanqin, look at the people who came to attend our wedding today. They're all famous people in Shiliang. Don't be angry. Come, smile for me. As Chen Wanqin walked to his side, Tian Shulin also began to laugh in a disrespectful manner. Chief Dean Tian, please take note of your status. Chen Wanqing's face was as cold as frost. She took 2 steps back, distancing herself from the other party, and then asked, "Where is my master?" "I can bow to the heavens and earth, but first I want to see her safe and sound." In fact, Tian Shulin had threatened Chen Wanqing's master's life. That was why she had put on this humiliating wedding dress and agreed to bow to heaven and earth with Tian Shulin. "Your master?" Tian Shulin was startled, then laughed. "That damned old woman doesn't know how to appreciate favors. In order to not let you be affected by her, I sent her to a good place and let her go to hell to reincarnate. Ha ha." At this point, Tian Shulin did not intend to hide it anymore. In fact, Chen Wanqing's master had been killed by him long ago. In order not to be a burden to her disciple, she used her blood to write a letter in prison to sever their relationship and expelled Chen Wanqing from the list of disciples. Relying on the fact that she used to be the deputy principal of the outer court, Chen Wanqing's master begged the person in prison. Finally, her pleas were pitied by someone. That person brought the letter and prepared to announce it to the whole academy. Unfortunately, before he could shout, Tian Shulin descended from the sky and smashed the top of his head with a palm. Then, he immediately killed Chen Wanqing's master. "Old dog Tian, I swear I won't let you live under the same sky." At this moment, Chen Wanqing finally exploded. Tears flowed out of her eyes. She had lost her mother when she was young. After coming to Star Moon Academy, her master was very strict and old-fashioned. She would often severely punish Chen Wanqing for not completing her cultivation tasks on time. However, when Chen Wanqing fell asleep at night, that old-fashioned but kind woman would personally apply medicine for her disciple. To Chen Wanqing, she was like a mother. However, her master, she was dead. Her master, who had toiled in the outer court for half her life and dedicated her youth to Star Moon Academy, was killed by Tian Shulin like an animal. He did not care about her feelings at all. In response to this, many of the outer court elders below the stage had already begun to sob softly. Chen Wanqing raised her hand and knocked away the phoenix coronet on her head. Yuan Qi crazily burst out from her body. Her wedding dress was ravaged by Yuan Qi. With a rip sound, it was torn into pieces, revealing the white clothes underneath. Then, with a flash of her hand, she took out the Fengli sword she had taken from Fengli Temple and swung it towards Tian Shulin's neck. This scene happened too quickly. The change in Chen Wanqing's mood caught everyone off guard. They could not help but cry out in surprise. However, she did not manage to kill old dog Tian as she had wished. In fact, when Chen Wanqing swung her sword, her body could no longer move freely. This was because a strand of Yuan Qi had been swept out by the Qianqian blade and enveloped Chen Wanqing's body, sealing her in place. "Bitch, you dare to shamelessly murder your own husband in front of the heroes of Western Liang. You made me lose face. Let's see how old man's 10,000 beasts will deal with you." Tian Shulin cursed angrily. He did not expect Chen Wanqing to be so unyielding. Her character was exactly the same as her dead master. Like disciple. Who was the shameless one? Hey! Chen Wanqing bit the tip of her tongue and spat a mouthful of bloody saliva on Tian Shulin's face. Damn it, this aroused Tian Shulin's fierceness. He slapped Chen Wanqing's face fiercely. With a pa sound, a sudden crisp sound was heard. Chen Wanqing's left face began to swell rapidly. "Today, you must honestly bow to the heavens and earth in front of the heroes of Old Man. It is not up to you whether you want to bow or not. If I let you live, you can live. If I don't let you die, you can't even die. This is the punishment for you and Qin Hao for hurting Bo Guang. I will return it to you 10 times, 100 times. I will make you suffer a fate worse than death." Tian Shulin roared fiercely. "Old dog Tian, you will suffer retribution." Chen Wanqing replied coldly. "Retribution?" Tian Shulin seemed to have heard the funniest joke. He could not help but raise his head and laugh wildly. "Retribution is just a sign that the weak are powerless to resist. As the strong, I will only bestow retribution on you. Today, you don't have to hope that anyone will come to save you. As long as I, Tian Shulin, am here, there is the Berserk Dragon Academy. As long as the Dean Shi Fong, and the commander of the Dragon Army are here, we are retribution. We are the law. Chapter 793. Old Dog Tian, don't be too arrogant. Since Qin Hao killed your grandson, he must have a way to take your life. He won't let you go. Chen Wanqin argued. The 3 academies and 1 army were very powerful. However, Qin Hao had Qi Yang's support behind him, and he had the aura of a highly respected vice president. Chen Wanqin felt that Tian Shulin might not be able to touch Qin Hao. In fact, if Tian Shulin had not threatened her with her master, Chen Wanqin would have left with Qin Hao. As she spoke, she twisted a few times, trying to break free from the shackles on her body. Unfortunately, the seal was very strong. With her ability, even if she increased her cultivation by 3 times, she might not be able to break free. Chen Wanqin subconsciously glanced at Sha Qianma. Her intuition told her that the man in front of her had a very powerful cultivation and was definitely more talented than Tian Boguang. It was fine if he did not mention Qin Hao. However, when Qin Hao was mentioned, Tian Shulin became even more furious and almost lost control. He jumped up and shouted, "You better pray that the little bastard doesn't have the guts to come. If he dares to come, I will tear him into pieces and expose his limbs to the sun for 100 years. Also, don't count on Qi Yang's medicine. I will support you. My son, Tian Daluo, is an emperor-level expert. After today's ceremony, I will immediately go and destroy Qiangbin. Senior Tian is right. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't struggle. Surrendering to fate is your best choice. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Sha Qiandao. I am the 2nd disciple of the Zhanyuan Mansion in the Great Yin Empire. My master is Senior Tian's son, Tian Daluo." Sha Qianma tried to persuade her with a smile. In the end, he added, "If you feel that you're not suitable for Senior Tian, I don't mind replacing Tian Boguang and marrying you. Of course, you're only fit to be my concubine at most." Sha Qianma's words shocked everyone. Even Tian Shulin was stunned for a few seconds. But then, Tian Shulin nodded in agreement. In fact, he only wanted to take revenge on Qin Hao. Marrying Chen Wanqin was not his goal. If this deepened his relationship with Sha Qianma and made them closer, then Tian Shulin would like to take Sha Qianma as his godson. Between their words, the 2 of them seemed to be tossing Chen Wanqin around like a commodity. "Bah, you think you're worthy of marrying this great aunt?" In response, Chen Wanqin spat a mouthful of saliva on the face of Qiandao. What a disgusting hypocrite. You don't know how to appreciate favors. Sha Qianma's chest heaved a few times. In the end, he was too embarrassed to teach Chen Wanqin a lesson. After all, Chen Wanqin was too beautiful, and he couldn't bear to hit her. Tian Shulin was still watching from the side. "Cut the crap. Hurry up and bow to the heavens and earth. I can't help but start a massacre." Yi Longquan's impatient voice came from below. Sha Qianma and Tian Shulin looked at each other and nodded at the same time. However, at this moment, there was suddenly a loud cry of panic that came from the direction of the outer courtyard. Immediately, the figure of a disciple was so scared that he wet his pants as he ran to the wedding stage. He pointed at the entrance of the academy in a panic and shouted, "Head principal, it's not good. A large group of elite disciples from Qiyang are here. We can't stop them. They've already reached the inner court." The disciple who passed the message was the lowest-ranking disciple in Star Moon School. He couldn't stop the elite disciples from Qiyang at all. The people who were rushing in were Yi Wuhan, Han Man, Naransu, and Nalan Li, the 4 inner court disciples. There were about 600 elites from Qiyang. Tian Boguang and Yi Shuifeng of Star Moon School were already dead. They didn't even have low-ranking inner court disciples like Lin Zijian and Lin Zizong. How could they stop Yi Wuhan's group? In fact, the elders of the outer court were also beaten to the ground by Yi Wuhan. He charged his way through as if there was no one around him. His momentum was like a hot knife through butter, and he directly fought his way to the inner hall of Star Moon Academy. As the voice of the inner court disciple fell, Yi Wuhan, who was dressed in black, had already rushed to the wedding stage and was very close to Tian Shulin. "It's so lively today. All the leaders of Western Liang are here, but I don't have time to bow to you. Those who have nothing to do with this, get out of here." Yi Wuhin's face was cold. He drew a circle with his finger, and a murderous aura spread out. Behind him, there were 600 Qiang elites in red. Their aura shocked all the sect leaders to the point that they gave up their seats and huddled together in a corner. They were all astute people. They could tell that Yi Wuhin wasn't a mediocre person. He was definitely a talented young man. Moreover, they couldn't afford to offend either Qiang or Star Moon School, so they could only watch the show from the side. "You're just a kid. How dare you give up? Kneel down." The others were afraid, but the inner court elders of Star Moon School weren't. While they were talking, the 9th elder of Star Moon School made his move. This old man threw a punch at Yi Wuhin. He was completely unreasonable. 4th level Yuan Monarch. Yi Wuhin sneered. Immediately after, he raised his hand and a 7-colored sword appeared. Then, an afterimage flashed and brushed past the 9th elder of Star Moon School. Uffed. The 9th elder's head flew into the air. Yi Wuhin was unscathed. "How dare you embarrass yourself in front of me, Yi Wuhin?" Yi Wuhin snorted coldly and landed lightly on the ground. Hiss! The surrounding people were dumbfounded and kept quiet out of fear. What a fast speed! It seems to be the power of the Yuan spirit. This person calls himself Yi Wuhin. Could he be the rumor number 1 disciple of Qiang School? He's indeed extraordinary. He actually killed the 9th elder of Star Moon School in one move. After a long time, exclamations sounded from the various sect leaders. At this moment, the way they looked at Yi Wuhin had changed. "Yi Wuhin, you're the one who stood out for Qin Hao, right?" Tian Shulin said gloomily, ignoring the 9th elder's life and death. He naturally knew about Yi Wuhin's existence. At the same time, Tian Boguang was also mentioned. If Tian Boguang had been around, how could he have allowed Yi Wuhin to act so presumptuously? Although killing Yi Wuhin was like killing an ant in front of him, Tian Shulin was a Yuan venerate powerhouse. Killing a junior didn't give him any sense of accomplishment. Why does junior brother Qin Hao have to step in to save her? In fact, I can't even withstand half a move from Qin Hao. Yi Wuhin could do such a small thing. Release Miss Wan Qin immediately. Otherwise, Qiang School will declare war on Star Moon School today. Yi Wuhin said fearlessly as he pointed his sword at Tian Shulin. In fact, he was very puzzled. After the Medicine Valley competition, they had agreed to wreak havoc in Star Moon School today. However, Qin Hao still hadn't returned. Now, Yi Wuhin had no choice but to stand out and repay Qin Hao's kindness. In an instant, Yi Wuhin's words shocked everyone again. He, who had killed the 9th elder of Star Moon School in one move, couldn't even withstand half a move from Qin Hao. Based on this, Qin Hao had already surpassed Yi Wuhin and become Qiang School's #1 disciple. However, why hadn't Western Liang been notified? Furthermore, the results of the Medicine Valley competition had been announced a while ago. Yi Wuhin had won the championship, and Qin Hao had been placed second. Everyone was puzzled. Qiang School's #1 disciple who won the championship of the Western Liang Medicine Valley competition, right? In that case, Northern Border's #2 disciple, Sha Qianma, would like to ask for advice. Chapter 794. Yi Wuhin didn't dare to be careless. The moment his opponent attacked, he could feel that he was a tough opponent. When the white Yuan Qi flew across the field with an ear-piercing sound, Yi Wuhin blocked in front of him with his sword. Clang! There was a loud sound. This vital Qi was dispersed by the 7-colored flowing light sword. However, the white light was indestructible and forcefully bent the 7-colored flowing light sword, causing it to stick closely to Yi Wuhin's chest. At this moment, the power of the house-killing blade passed through the sword and entered Yi Wuhin's body. An earth-shattering force sent his body flying backward and crashing heavily onto the ground 10 meters away, shattering the stone slabs on the ground. At this moment, a muffled pong sound was heard. It could be seen that the speed of the house-killing blade's attack was faster than the speed of sound. This scene was very shocking. The #1 disciple of Qiang, Yi Wuhin, had won the Medicine Valley competition but he was no match for the number 2 disciple of the Zhanyue mansion. Dig! After Yi Wuhan fell to the ground, he spat out a large mouthful of blood. His body trembled in pain. He quickly stabbed his sword into the ground and tried to stand up. However, he failed and fell down again. An expert among experts, Yi Wuhan grumbled as he endured the pain of his internal organs being crushed. He raised his head and looked at the house-killing blade with fear in his eyes. This feeling was too familiar. It was as if he was facing Tian Boguang, who had summoned the demonic martial armor half a month ago. He couldn't fight back at all. No, in Yi Wuhan's opinion, the house-killing blade hadn't used his full strength yet. He was definitely someone who was more difficult to deal with than Tian Boguang. He didn't expect Star Moon Academy to have such a terrifying opponent other than Yi Shueifeng. Senior Wuhan, how are you? Nalan Li and Han Man quickly ran over to help Yi Wuhan up. When they touched Yi Wuhan's body, they felt that his body was soft as if he had lost all his strength. The number 1 disciple of Qi Yang is only SOSO. You can't even take a light wave of my hand. You people of Western Liang are indeed the weakest and most trashy of the 4 domains. The house-killing blade didn't have the slightest joy of victory. Instead, he shook his head in disappointment. After that, he didn't even bother to look at Yi Wuhan. To him, Yi Wuhan wasn't interesting at all. You damn it. How dare you look down on Xiangbin? He even looks down on us Western Liang martial artists. More than 600 Red Sun elite disciples clenched their fists in righteous indignation. Although they were furious, the fact that the house-killing blade defeated Qi Yang's legend, disciple Yi Wuhan, in one move was indeed terrifying. Ha ha ha. As expected of my son's favorite student. Qi Yang's so-called elite disciples are really weak. Since you've walked right into my trap, there's no need for you to go back. Tian Shulin smiled proudly and nodded his head in satisfaction. Immediately, an undisguised, murderous aura spread out from his eyes. Senior brother Yi Wuhan, thank you for your kind intentions. I've implicated Qi Yang today. Chen Wanqin was still in the posture of drawing her sword. She was imprisoned in the same place, and she couldn't help but purse her lips. She and Yi Wuhan were neither relatives nor friends, but the other party had led the Scarlet Sun sect's people to risk their lives to save her. However, Chen Wanqin knew that this was all because of Qin Hao. How can I implicate junior brother Qin Hao if I can do something for him? I admit that I'm not his opponent, but compared to Qin Hao, he's nothing. Yi Wuhan responded without being discouraged. He didn't lose his confidence. The house-killing blade was indeed powerful. It gave Yi Wuhan more pressure than Tian Boguang. However, he believed that Qin Hao could fight with the house-killing blade. Of course, if he wanted to defeat the other party, Qin Hao might have to pay a higher price than defeating Tian Boguang. You're just trying to show off. If you have the ability, ask Qin Hao to come. A bunch of trash. The house-killing blade was dismissive of this. All right, I've been annoyed by these annoying flies. Chief Tian, please hurry up and get rid of them. Below, Yilongquan was extremely impatient. All right, Tian Shulin nodded his head. Old man, give them a chance. As he spoke, a terrifying purple flame rose from Tian Shulin's body. He was going to suppress them. Yi Wuhan and the other 600 disciples of the Red Sun sect looked nervous in an instant. Although they were nervous, they weren't afraid. It was as if there was a big backer behind them, and they were very safe. It's not good. Reporting to Chief Tian, a large group of people barged into the outer sect. Oh no, it's a sea of people. There are all kinds of things. There are chefs, pastry chefs, pig farmers, farmers, and disciples of the beggar clan. It's impossible to count them all. There are no less than 30,000 people. Under the leadership of the leader of the Leg sect, they are coming aggressively. They can topple the mountains and overturn the seas. The disciples can't hold on any longer. Enough! Without waiting for the messenger to finish speaking, Tian Shulin sent him flying with a slap. This was because he had already seen Tai Wanli. Moreover, he saw that there really was a black wave of people behind Tai Wanli. In the middle of the sea of people, there were countless flags. On all the flags, there were only 3 words, Grand Spirit Alliance. Tian Shulin, let Miss Wanqin go. As he spoke, Tai Wanli had already stood below the stage and met with the disciples of the Red Sun sect, led by Yi Wuhan. At this moment, both sides nodded as if they had a tacit understanding. Strange things happen every year, but this year, there are a lot of strange things happening. Did the sun rise from the west? Tian Shulin was stunned. It made sense that Yi Wuhan came to save people on behalf of the Red Sun sect. However, Tai Wanli had brought so many second-rate and even third-rate gangs to make trouble. They were obviously standing up for Qin Hao. Did he take the wrong medicine? Old Tian, you're the chief dean of the Star Moon Academy. How dare you force a female disciple to marry you? Do you have any shame? How can he have any shame? He's already so old and is about to enter the coffin. How can he have the nerve to harm a little girl? You may know a person for a long time without understanding his true nature. I used to think that he was a hero, but in fact, he's worse than a boar. Oh, he's worse than a beast. Today, we're going to turn your Star Moon Academy upside down. Moreover, we're going to scold you so badly that you'll lose the courage to live. Behind Tai Wanli, there were countless small sects that formed the Grand Qi Alliance's support group. Their noisy voices were like flies flying into Tian Shulin's ears. Among the people who were scolding him, there were chefs, farmers with hoes, and even a few beggars who took off their shoes and threw them on the wedding stage. Sha Qianma, who was standing beside Tian Shulin, couldn't help but quickly dodge. She even covered her mouth with a look of disgust. So noisy. You bunch of trash raised by sons of cheese. Even a farmer dares to jump around in front of the old man. Today, I'm going to start a massacre. Tian Shulin couldn't take it anymore. He felt that he had lost all his face. He stretched out his hand, and a layer of purple light shrouded him. It turned into a huge palm with a radius of 10 mu. The palm was like a heavy mountain that pressed down. Yi Wuhan, Nalan Li, and Tai Wanli's group were all covered. Immediately, the sky above everyone's head turned dark. A gust of wind blew, causing the disciples of the Scarlet Sun Academy to scream in fear. The power of a revered realm expert's attack was not to be underestimated. If they were hit, none of the tens of thousands of people would be able to survive. Attacking a group of juniors. Tian Shulin, you've really impressed me. Chapter 795. In fact, as soon as Qiandao finished speaking, a sharp bird's cry came from the sky. Then, it was as if a blazing sun had descended from the sky, pressing down on the Starry Moon Academy. It was a rare, three-legged golden crow. On the back of the three-legged golden crow was the vice president, Yao Lao, who was second only to Qi Yang and above everyone else. When Tian Shulin's enormous palm fell, the three-legged golden crow let out a sonorous cry. Its enormous wings fiercely flapped, and it threw out a gust of wind. The gust of wind bombarded the enormous palm, and with a boom, both of them were shaken into a cloud of dust. Moreover, a powerful ripple appeared in the sky. Vice President. It's the Vice President. When the black palm above their heads disappeared, the disciples of Qi Yang looked up and shouted in surprise. Tai Wanli heaved a sigh of relief and wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Although it was satisfying to wreak havoc in Starry Moon Academy, it was too casual to be killed by a single palm. Even if Tai Wanli died, he wanted to die a heroic death. It would be best if he died in front of everyone. At that moment, the sect masters of the various third-rate sects cupped their fists and bowed to the sky. Thank you for your help, Vice President Qi Yang. Thank you so much. Not only did you save me, but you also saved thousands of beasts in my pigsty. In response, Yao Lao, who was standing on the back of the three-legged golden crow, nodded his head slightly. Originally, Qi Yang was here to save people. Tai Wanli was simply messing around with a bunch of people. However, this really disgusted Tian Shulin. In fact, Yao Lao also felt a little disgusted. Yao Chun, you old fool. I haven't even gone to Qi Yang to look for you, but you came to me to seek death. Ha ha ha. When Tian Shulin saw Yao Lao, he couldn't help but become excited. Purple Yuan Qi surged from his body, and he slowly rose into the sky. Gradually, he reached the same height as Yao Lao's three-legged golden crow. At that moment, the two Yuan venerates confronted each other. The atmosphere suddenly became very tense. Let go of the girl down there, and I can pretend that nothing happened. Otherwise, I'm afraid that your Star Moon Academy will meet its end today, Yao Lao said calmly. His tone sounded more like an order. Ha ha! What shameless boasting! With Principal Quang Long, Principal Shi Fong, and Commander Long Kuan here, let's see whose doomsday it is. Tian Shulin gritted his teeth. In terms of cultivation level, Yao Lao was still one level lower than him. However, under normal circumstances, he would be wary of Yao Lao. After all, the three-legged golden crow was not just a decoration. It was a beast king at the peak of the king stage. He could break through to venerable beast at any time and transform into a human. The abilities of magical beasts were often slightly tougher than the means of human beings. With Yao Lao and the three-legged golden crow joining forces, Tian Shulin could not gain any advantage. But today, Tian Shulin snorted coldly and waved his hand. Whoosh, whoosh. Below, Dean Shi Fong, Dean Quang Long, and Yi Shuifeng's father, Yi Longkuan, all raised their Yuan Qi and soared into the sky. Together with Tian Shulin himself, they surrounded Yao Lao from all four directions, trapping him in the middle. Purple flames flickered on the bodies of the four of them. They were all Yuan venerates. Given your ability, barely blocking one of us is already your limit. Of course, your three-legged golden crow is very powerful, and we might not be able to do anything to you alone. However, now that the four of us have joined forces, killing you is as easy as snapping our fingers, Tian Shulin said coldly and exchanged glances with the other three. Principal Shi Fong and Quang Long smiled treacherously. The three of them, including Yi Longkuan, attacked almost at the same time. Hold on. Suddenly, the call of the House Destroyer was heard. He lifted his head and shouted into the sky, Senior Tian, the old fellow riding the big bird is nothing to worry about. I've received news that Master is about to arrive. You don't have to do anything to kill this person. Why don't you let him watch your wedding with his own eyes, with a helpless expression? Wouldn't that be great? Ha ha ha. House Destroyer is right. I grant Yao Chen 2 more hours to live so that he can witness the old man's wedding with his own eyes. Tian Shulin had a flash of inspiration. This idea wasn't bad. Then, he shot a glance at Yi Longkuan and the other two, indicating that they should trap Yao Lao. Then, Tian Shulin floated down leisurely and stood beside Chen Wanqin. Then, he lifted his head and pointed at Yao Lao. Yao Chen, you think very highly of that little bastard Qin Hao, don't you? In fact, you even treat him like your disciple. Now, I want you to watch helplessly as the woman your disciple cares about marries the old man husband and wife. Do you think you're very incompetent? You're just a piece of trash. Ha ha ha. Tian Shulin laughed unscrupulously. In fact, he had been jealous of Yao Lao for a long time when he was young. Old man, you're courting death. Yao Lao was furious. Yi Longkuan and the other two were glaring at him from the side, so he couldn't act rashly. It seemed as if he was waiting for something. You're both deans and Yuan venerate powerhouses, but you can't compare to Vice Dean Shiyang. You're not even fit to carry his shoes. Chen Wanqin really regretted coming to Star Moon Academy. Old man doesn't need a woman like you to teach him how to behave. Go through the wedding ceremony with me immediately. Tian Shulin stretched out his hand and pressed down on Chen Wanqin's head. First bow to heaven and earth. Upon seeing this, House Destroyer opened his mouth to preside over the ceremony. The scene before them made Yi Wuhan and the others explode with anger. The third-rate sect masters behind Tai wanly cursed once again as they pointed at Tian Shulin on the wedding stage. Was he still human? Unfortunately, no one stepped forward to stop them. Chen Wanqin raised her head with all her might and tried her best to resist the other party's hand. In front of hundreds of thousands of people, she was filled with grief and indignation. Not only was she unable to avenge her master, but she also had to bow to the old dog who had killed her master. This was the most humiliating thing in the world. Whoosh, the sound of something breaking through the air was heard, as if a ray of white light was descending. Just as House Destroyer smiled and shouted, "Bow to heaven and earth!" This ray of white light ruthlessly pierced the soles of his feet. It was a loud boom. In an instant, the entire wedding stage collapsed and was shattered by this external force. This force spread in all directions, and anyone who was affected by it was sent flying while spewing blood. House Destroyer, who was closest to it, couldn't help but take a few steps back. He hurriedly channeled a stream of crimson yuan qi to stabilize himself. Who dares to behave atrociously in front of old man? Tian Shulin shouted angrily. He picked up Chen Wanqin in time and flew away. The two of them landed below the wedding stage. At this moment, following the collapse of the wedding stage, there was a spear stuck in the middle of the broken stones. This spear was completely golden. The spearhead was smashed into the pile of stones, and there were traces of golden flames coming out from the cracks of the stones. Grand Alliance, Qin Hao. When everyone raised their heads. Chapter 796. It wasn't hard to see that Chen Wanqin had been tortured and abused during this period. It wasn't hard to see that Qin Hao was really angry. It's Qin Hao. He really came. Isn't he walking right into a trap? Even if Deputy Chief Dean Xiang comes, I'm afraid he won't be able to return. Newborn calves aren't afraid of tigers. Although it's foolish to try and save someone from the hands of 4 Yuan venerates, his courage is admirable. Discussions broke out all around. More than 90% of the people present hadn't believed that Qin Hao would show up. However, they had miscalculated. Alliance leader, young Master Qin Hao, Big Brother Qin Hao, Junior Brother Qin Hao, Yi Wuhan, Nalan Li, Han Man, and Taiwan Li were all excited as they raised their heads and shouted joyfully. Unlike the others, they firmly believed that Qin Hao would definitely come. Their faith had never wavered. After all, the person who wouldn't dare come wasn't Qin Hao. Is this person Qin Hao, the one who killed Tian Boguang? He does have some ability to be proud of. However, it's fine that he fought with Tian Boguang over a woman, but he actually overestimated himself and made an enemy out of Crown Prince Murong Zijuan. How foolish! House Killblade first swept the dust off its body, then narrowed its eyes. Its pupils shrunk to the size of a needle as it sized up Qin Hao. There weren't many people of the same generation in the world who could force him back with one strike. Qin Hao's skills were considered top-notch in the Northern Territory. However, it was only at the top-notch level. If this was Qin Hao's full strength, Qian Dao would probably be laughing this time. He only needed to use 60% of his strength. He could kill Qin Hao like he was killing an ant, perfectly fulfill Murong Zijuan's task, and take revenge for Tian Boguang at the same time. Qin Hao was very calm as he listened to the negative comments from the various sect masters below, as well as the expectant looks of Yi Wuhan and Nalan Li. He didn't say anything and just slowly floated towards Chen Wanqin's position. The distance between them was getting closer and closer. He treated Tian Shulin as if he didn't exist. In his eyes, there was only Chen Wanqin. Good. Little bastard, you actually came. The great battle formation that old man arranged today was not in vain. I will ruthlessly kill you in front of all the heroes of Western Liang. With Qin Hao's arrival, Tian Shulin's mood was like a detonated bomb, becoming incomparably irritable. As he spoke, he no longer had the time to bow to heaven and earth. He simply pushed Chen Wanqin away. Chen Wanqin was just a bait. Qin Hao was his ultimate target, the big fish he wanted to catch. His push was incredibly powerful, and Chen Wanqin felt as if she had been swept up by a tornado. She could not help but crash into the courtyard wall, causing a whistling sound. Moreover, her strength had been sealed, so she was as weak as an ordinary person. There was no doubt that if she was knocked down, her whole body would probably be turned into meat paste and buried with Tian Boguang. Qin Hao moved. His figure flashed, and he quickly caught up with her. In the midst of Chen Wanqin's screams, a strong arm wrapped around her waist, giving her an indestructible sense of security. However, this force was extremely fierce. Qin Hao immediately suffered from the recoil and flew out together with her. Seeing that the two of them were about to collapse the courtyard wall of the inner pavilion, everyone screamed. Yao Lao, who was in the sky, looked askance. He was considering whether he should help Qin Hao dissolve Tian Shulin's power. However, in the next second, he didn't have such thoughts anymore. Instead, he revealed an admiring smile. Qin Hao's feet tapped lightly on the ground, like a dragonfly skimming over the wall. It was unknown what method he used, but he used an endless and soft force to neutralize Tian Shulin's ferocious attack. In the next moment, he and Chen Wanqin landed safely in the crowd of Qiyang disciples. This scene caused everyone to be extremely curious and amazed. I knew you would definitely come. After landing, Chen Wanqin looked at Qin Hao's face. After not seeing him for a year, Qin Hao had changed a lot. The most obvious change was the 2 strands of hair on his forehead. These 2 strands of hair had turned white. She knew that Qin Hao must have gone through many twists and turns. However, there was no time to reminisce. Moreover, Chen Wanqin wouldn't take the initiative to ask. On the contrary, at this moment, she was unusually calm. There was no worry in her eyes, no hatred, and no desire to avenge her master. She just calmly looked at Qin Hao's face. She was very clear about all the unfair treatment she had received in Starry Moon Academy. She also wanted to avenge her master. The man in front of her would avenge her. Not only did you believe that I would come, but you also believed that no matter how big the storm ahead was, I would bring you out safely. Qin Hao's smile was very bright and charming. He lowered his head and looked at Chen Wanqin. His temperament was very carefree. Of course, Chen Wanqin also firmly believed in this. The conversation between the two of them was very relaxed, just like when they had chatted in Fengli Temple. At this moment, no matter how nervous the people outside were, it had nothing to do with them. This made Tian Shulin even more furious. Qin Hao had neutralized his Yuan Venerate attack and made him lose face. Now, he was even chatting with Chen Wanqin without the slightest scruple. You 2 sluts! How dare you act so arrogantly in front of the old man and act so indifferently? Have you ever considered the feelings of the old man? Have you ever considered the feelings of my grandson, Bo Guang, in the netherworld? Tian Shulin roared angrily. At this moment, Qin Hao looked over lazily and said disdainfully, Tian Bo Guang is a dead man. Why should I, Qin Hao, care about his feelings? Even when he was alive, he was like a fleeting cloud in my eyes. This was actually the truth. However, this truth was like a sharp thorn that pierced Tian Shulin's heart mercilessly and tore open the wound at the bottom of his heart. Bastard! The old man will suppress you right now and let you experience Sun Boguang's yearning in hell. Qin Hao, you little bastard, prepare to die. Tian Shulin roared as if he had gone mad. His white hair started to sway wildly as his Yuan Qi wreaked havoc. Then, he stretched out his hand and condensed a palm the size of an acre in an attempt to slap Qin Hao to death. Hold on! Someone shouted to stop him. At this moment, Qian Dao, who had disregarded his own safety, rushed in front of Tian Shulin and opened his arms to protect Qin Hao and Chen Wanqin behind him. This strange action immediately caused everyone to be surprised and puzzled. Tian Shulin was also puzzled. If he hadn't retracted his palm quickly, Qian Dao, who had appeared rashly like a donkey, would have definitely gone to have tea with Tian Boguang before Qin Hao. Qian Dao, why are you doing this? Tian Shulin shouted angrily, his body trembling as if he had been electrocuted. Senior, please don't blame me. Qian Dao wasn't trying to stop you. Actually, why would a Yuan Venerate powerhouse like you lower yourself to kill Qin Hao? Qian Dao is willing to do such a small thing for you. After all, my master is Tian Daoyuo. In private, Bo Guang and I are as close as brothers. Blood is thicker than water. My greatest wish is to kill a despicable person like Qin Hao for Bo Guang. Qian Dao explained hurriedly. His tone made it sound as if he was very upright, and that Qin Hao had been greatly belittled and become a despicable person. Tian Shulin was so angry that his chest heaved violently. If he couldn't avenge his grandson with his own hands, it would be difficult for him to vent the hatred in his heart. Senior Tian, no. Actually, I should be like Brother Bo Guang and address you as grandfather. Grandfather, don't worry. As long as I step in, Qin Hao will suffer a fate worse than death. Chapter 797. Tian Shulin's heart was touched by the call of Grandpa. It hit his softest spot and moved him. In a trance, he felt that the young man kneeling at his feet had become his grandson, Tian Buguang. Tian Shulin couldn't refuse any request. My grandson, get up quickly. Fine. Qin Hao, you'll take care of the eagle on behalf of Grandpa. Remember, don't let him die a good death. Tian Shulin's heart softened. He picked up the house killer and couldn't help but tear up. His eyes were full of hatred. His hands were like two big pliers, pinching the shoulders of the house killer so hard that his bones hurt. Thank you, Grandpa. The house killer forgot the pain at this moment. He only felt joy. Immediately, he turned to look at Qin Hao with a disdainful and provocative expression. Although I don't know where you came from, I can feel that you have a problem with me and want to kill me. Qin Hao looked at the house killer and intuitively judged that this guy had some ability. Since he dared to say that he would take care of him, his cultivation must not be lower than Tian Buguang's. If it was in the past, Qin Hao might have felt that it was serious. Unfortunately, compared to half a month ago, Qin Hao had leveled up again. Qin Hao, this guy is very strong. Chen Wanqin immediately reminded him. He is the second disciple of the Zhanyue mansion of the Great Yin Empire in the northern frontier. His master is Tian Daluo. Just now, he waved his hand and seriously injured me. Junior brother Qin Hao, don't be careless. Yi Wuhan also took a step forward. At this time, Qin Hao glanced at Nalan Li, Nalan Zhu, and Han Man. He found that everyone was extremely nervous. Obviously, after coming here, they were frightened by the house killing blade. In response, Qin Hao nodded indifferently. Boy, you are very arrogant. Next, please remember my name so that when you die, you can shout my name out loud so that the whole world will know that it was me who killed you, Qin Hao. Then, I'm called Qian Dao. Qian Dao, as the second most senior disciple of the Zhanyue mansion, has received strict teachings from my master since he was young. He doesn't like to waste time with others. In fact, if it weren't for today's incident that alarmed me in the northern border, would you have the chance to stand here and talk to me? Qian Dao was very angry at Qin Hao's words of "you bastard." In the Great Yin Empire, no matter who it was, when they heard the words house killing blade, it was as if they had seen a true god descending. Qin Hao actually dared to describe him as something. You don't like nonsense, do you? What a coincidence. I don't like to talk nonsense either. So what do you want to do? As he spoke, Qin Hao released Chen Wanqin from his arms and took a step forward. It was obvious that the disciple of the Zhanyue mansion of the northern frontier was so eager to kill him. There must be some benefits involved. If he was not mistaken, it must have something to do with Murong Zijuan. After all, the Zhanyue mansion was a sect of the Great Yin. Ha ha ha! Straightforward. Qian Dao laughed and began to admire Qin Hao. He nodded. My idea is very simple. I just want to kill you or be killed by you. Of course, it's impossible for you to kill me. In fact, as Tian Daluo's disciple, other than avenging Tian Buguang, I also want to kill him. Also, Prince Zijun, you know very well that next year will be the day when the northern Daliao's Princess Jingyue will be crowned as the crown prince. I have to say, you're really bold. Not only did you steal Tian Buguang's girl, but you also dared to scheme against Crown Prince Zijun and Prince Shiyu of the Northern Qi Kingdom for Princess Jingyue. Even I, Qian Dao, am killed. Even a genius among geniuses wouldn't dare to have any thoughts about Princess Jingyue. There are too many young experts in the Northern Territory, so I don't dare to offend them all. However, Qin Hao, why don't you take a piss and look at your own face? You're just a toad. How can you have any thoughts about Princess Jingyue? For the sake of the world, I can only execute you personally and return the Northern Territory to its former glory. Qian Dao was not afraid of blowing up the matter and revealed the bigger secret behind it. As he spoke, he seemed to be the incarnation of God, trying to judge Qin Hao on behalf of the world. His words were extremely impassioned and righteous. This news immediately spread throughout the wedding banquet, from the Star Moon cabinet to the inner court, and then from the inner court to the outer court. Then, the outer court disciples spread the news on the streets like a plague, spreading rapidly throughout the entire Western Lyon. Hey, did you know? Something big happened at the Star Moon Academy today. Not only did Qin Hao overestimate himself and save someone in front of 4 Yuan venerates, but he also had thoughts about Daliao's most beloved and only princess. Now, Qin Dao of the Seizing Moon Mansion is going to execute Qin Hao. Qin Hao is really a wastrel who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Furthermore, he's a hothead who's angry over beauty. All sorts of rumors had already spread throughout Western Lyon. At the moment, in the Star Moon Academy, hundreds of sect masters and disciples of the 3 major academies heard Qin Dao's words. Besides being shocked, they couldn't help but secretly give Qin Hao a thumbs up. F***CK. What a real man. He was actually willing to risk his life for a beauty. He could be considered a role model for all single dogs. Junior brother Qin Hao, there are almost no people that I, Yi Wuhan, admire. For the past half a month, I only admired you. However, today, I will completely worship you. You even dared to lust after the beloved daughter of the fiercest Emperor Shao in the northern frontier. Even if you die, you can die without regrets. Yi Wuhan said, Senior brother Wuhan, didn't you say before that you should pursue the girl you like? If you can't get her, you should forcefully pursue her. If she resists, you should forcefully pursue her until she's satisfied. In my opinion, as long as our Alliance Master Qin Hao continues to forcefully pursue Princess Jingyue, sooner or later, she will fall in love with Alliance Master Qin Hao. Yes. Han Man, who was standing at the side, said foolishly. Qin Hao couldn't help but want to slap them. He and Xiao Han were childhood sweethearts who had grown up together. They had been betrothed to each other when they were young. Xiao Han was his fiancée. Forget it. I won't argue with these people, as they simply don't know the truth. However, this made Chen Wanqin chuckle. She was very clear about Xiao Han's matters, including the 5-year agreement. Qian Dao, do you want to kill me and become famous? After all, you are just a dog under Murong Zijuan's pants. However, I will give you this opportunity. Qin Hao was furious. He could tolerate anything except for Xiao Han. He would never allow her to be slandered or wronged. She was his future wife. Slandering and wronged were 2 words that were more appropriate to describe him at the moment. However, Qin Hao didn't care. In short, Qian Dao had successfully aroused his murderous intent by distorting the truth. Ha ha ha. It seems like you're quite confident in yourself. Come on, let's fight. I promise you that as long as you kill me, you can safely leave Star Moon Academy with Chen Wanqin. Chief Dean Tian and the other 3 Yuan Venerate seniors won't make things difficult for you. Qian Dao can swear on this. Qian Dao glanced at Tian Shulin as he spoke. Tian Shulin shuddered at first, but he calmed down immediately. Given Qian Dao's terrifying cultivation base, Qin Hao simply had no chance of winning. Yi Longquan's heart also skipped a beat. The death of his son, Yi Shueifeng, couldn't be unrelated to Qin Hao. However, after seeing how calm Tian Shulin was, Yi Longquan decided to be patient and witness the contest between Qian Dao and Qin Hao. He wanted to see what ability Qin Hao, who had killed his son, had to contend with the genius of the Northern Territory. Chapter 798. Everyone in the field began to disperse, creating a space of about 500 meters around them. At this time, including Yao Lao, hundreds of thousands of pairs of eyes were staring at Qin Hao and the House Killblade. The fight between the two was not just a personal grudge, but also represented the dignity of the Western Liang and Northern borderline martial artists. Qin Hao took a steady step forward. With every step he took, his aura grew a little stronger. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He turned and smiled at Chen Wanqin. I found it in the Medicine Valley. It's not expensive, so I'll give it to you. With a flip of his hand, a 2-foot-long ice bamboo shoot appeared in Qin Hao's palm. It was crystal clear and emitted a strong, icy aura. He raised his hand and threw it to Chen Wanqin. In addition, for inner cores also flew over. The luster of these inner cores was very strong. They were at least at the saint level. Especially on the ice bamboo shoot, there were 3 ice beads. The beads contained a majestic spiritual aura that no one present had ever seen before. At the same time, the temperature in the Star Moon cabinet area suddenly dropped. A chill seemed to hit everyone, causing them to shiver. Some of the weaker martial artists' eyebrows and hair were covered with a layer of frost. It's the 100-year Ice Bamboo Shoot King, and 4 inner cores of ice-type demonic beasts. What a big deal, the various sect leaders exclaimed. Many people recognized it. As for those martial artists who cultivated ice-type techniques, their eyes were filled with envy at Chen Wanqin. At this time, Qin Hao closed his 5 fingers and grabbed in the direction of Chen Wanqin. With a pop, like the sound of glass breaking, the shackles on her body were broken. Chen Wanqin immediately regained her ability to move. She reached out and caught the Ice Bamboo Shoot King in inner cores. Her eyes were filled with ecstasy. She nodded excitedly and said, "I like it very much. Thank you." After that, she held the gift in the palm of her hand. She was speechless. She could not describe her feelings. She really liked it very much. She was so happy that she was like a 3-year-old girl. It turned out that in Qin Hao's heart, he had always been thinking about her. Even if they could only be friends for the rest of their lives, this life would be enough. Why don't I have such good luck? Why can't I find the Ice Bamboo King in the Medicine Valley? Even if you have such good luck, I'm afraid you won't be alive to enjoy it. Do you think anyone can go to the Medicine Valley? Unless you obtain the approval of the higher-ups of the magical beasts. Once you try to sneak in, you can forget about coming out alive. In the end, you'll end up as a pile of bones or become the feces of the magical beasts. Some people said jealously. However, most people were fearful of the Medicine Valley. It was an existence that was not inferior to the Western Liang's forbidden grounds. It was rumored that old seniors who had reached the revered realm or even the Emperor realm had entered, but they never came out again. It was a hell that devoured people without spitting out their bones. Compared to the envy and jealousy in everyone's eyes, as well as the admiration for Qin Hao. Because at the same time Qin Hao gave her the gift, he grabbed at the shackles on Chen Wanqin's body and broke them. It seems that your strength is slightly higher than I imagined. I have underestimated you. Come on, kill me, or be killed by me. Qian Dao lifted the front of his robe and pinned it to his waist, preparing to attack. This was exactly what Qin Hao wanted. Without further ado, he bent his legs into the shape of a bow, and with a water wind step, his body shot out like an arrow. A wave of raging flame rose from his fist, violently smashing forward. Qin Hao, you have to be careful. Grasping the gift in her hand, Chen Wanqin loudly shouted, "Soul fire? You really do have an origin spirit. It seems to be of a higher grade than Tian Buguang's. No wonder he died by your hands. But to me, you're nothing." Qin Dao moved at the same time. With a tap of his foot, he created a large hole in the ground and charged forward like a cannonball. At the same time, his right hand turned into a cold beast claw, a bit like a leopard's claw. This was his innate beast soul, and, judging from the speed, Qin Dao's beast soul was not an ordinary leopard. It's a flash leopard. Qin Hao was slightly surprised. He couldn't help increasing the power of the red lotus soul fire on his fist. As the name implied, the flash leopard was very fast. After opening his origin spirit, Qin Dao's attack power was not only high, but his speed also completely suppressed normal people. With his current level, Qin Dao's flash leopard speed was not slower than Yi Wuhan's speed. This was quite terrifying. After all, Yi Wuhan's innate speed was 6 times faster than normal people. While they were talking, the first move of the two sides collided. A dazzling light exploded and a pung sound rang out. Qin Hao was hit, and he couldn't help sliding back 10 meters. His right sleeve was torn apart by Qian Dao, and there were 5 bloody scratches on his arm. But these scratches were very shallow, so shallow that not a single drop of blood flowed out. Even so, Qin Hao retreated while praising Qian Dao in his heart. The other side was able to leave 5 bloody scratches on his dragon soul body. His skills were not bad. But Qian Dao was miserable. He felt like a bull had hit his chest. He couldn't hold back a mouthful of blood as he raised his head and spat it out. He had seriously underestimated the strength of Qin Hao's body. He could only see that Qin Hao was in the fourth layer of the king realm. Although the other side had an origin spirit, compared to him who was in the peak king realm, Qin Hao was several times weaker. Especially Qian Dao, who was from the northern frontier. He was even more careless than Tian Buoguang. This was because he had never fought with Qin Hao before. Tian Buoguang had fought with Qin Hao before. Even if Qin Hao's cultivation was weak, Tian Buoguang did not dare be careless. From this point, Tian Buoguang actually approved of Qin Hao. At this time, after Qian Dao was sent flying by the fist, he found that the red flames were not normal. It was far stronger than he had imagined. Because of his carelessness, he was immediately entangled by the red lotus soul fire. He could not shake it off. Just like Qin Hao, his entire sleeve was burned to ashes. But compared to Qin Hao, his injuries were more serious. A burnt smell spread. Qian Dao's skin was burnt and turned into liquid. While screaming, he hurriedly raised his yuan qi and forcibly dispersed the flames on his arm. He then took out an ice pill and swallowed it. Only then did he manage to relieve the injuries caused by the red lotus soul fire. Kid, you really do have some skills. Qian Dao was too careless. Qian Dao clenched his teeth and bitterly said. At this moment, the skin on his right arm had grown back. It seemed that the ice pill he had swallowed was not ordinary. But there was a trace of shame that flashed across his face, because he had been repelled by Qin Hao in one move. Although he had torn the other sleeve, it was clear that Qin Hao's injuries were minimal. It was much lighter than Qian Dao's. Qian Dao also found that Qin Hao's defense was a bit abnormal. I don't only have one set. I have a second set. Qin Hao smiled coldly. After one move, he could vaguely judge the opponent's level. If this guy did not hide any extreme trump cards, his strength would be about the same as Tian Buoguang's. The two of them would at most be evenly matched. Half a month ago, Qin Hao was able to kill Tian Buoguang. Today, Qian Dao naturally could not make any waves. Moreover, compared to half a month ago, Qin Hao's cultivation had increased by another level. And this stage almost caused a qualitative leap in strength. Flame Dragon Fist. Chapter 799. In an instant, a tongue of fire transformed into a fire dragon and shot out from Qin Hao's fist. With a roar, it charged towards Qian Dao. As the flames swept past, crackling sounds could be heard in the air. Qin Hao actually repelled the house killing blade of the moon-severing mansion with one move. Qian Dao's injuries are much more serious than Qin Hao's. If he hadn't swallowed an ice pill in time, his combat power would have been greatly reduced. Yi Wuhan is right. Qin Hao might really have the ability to defeat Qian Dao. Some of the sect masters were secretly delighted. They were Western Liang martial artists, so they were proud that Qin Hao had the upper hand. Moreover, they had been forced to come by Tian Shulin, so they were naturally dissatisfied and conflicted with the Starry Moon Academy. However, some people spoke up and analyzed the situation. Qian Dao was careless just now, so Qin Hao took advantage of the opening. He is a peak Yuan monarch, and Qin Hao is only a fourth-tier monarch. He will definitely lose in the end. This person's analysis made sense. After all, everyone knew that the higher one's cultivation level was, the more obvious the difference between levels would be. A person with a higher cultivation level would have more vitality and strength. Unless Qin Hao had an extremely high-grade cultivation technique, he would not be able to escape defeat. Even so, they were still shocked by the fire dragon in front of them. The power of the fire dragon had reached the level of a high-level Yuan monarch and was enough to pose a threat to Qian Dao. All the sect masters couldn't help but look at Qin Hao in a different light. A fourth-tier monarch had the destructive power of an eighth-tier monarch. He was indeed a talent. Qian Dao, go all out. At this moment, Tian Shulin, who was watching the battle, said in a dissatisfied tone. In the past, his grandson had underestimated Qin Hao and suffered a loss in the New Star competition. As a disciple of the Starry Moon Academy, Qian Dao had actually made such a small mistake. I understand. Qin Hao, don't be so arrogant. Take my essence soul martial technique, leopard rending flash. Qin Hao finally spoke seriously. As he spoke, he absorbed his soul into his body and showed his true ability. The phantom of a leopard with piebald stripes appeared behind him. Then, the phantom turned into white smoke and entered his body. The House Killblade's appearance immediately underwent a huge change. Its face looked like a human, but it wasn't a human. It looked like a leopard, but it wasn't a leopard. A pile of golden curly hair grew out of its head, and it was very thick and long. Furthermore, his four limbs had become thicker, and his two hands had completely transformed into leopard claws. He even had a tail. His body had become more symmetrical and more suitable for launching attacks. At this moment, House Kill had transformed into a half-beast, full of wildness. Roar! He let out a leopard's roar and leaped high into the air. With a claw, he swatted at the fire dragon. With the support of his Yuan Qi, his claws were incomparably sharp. Like a flash of lightning, he tore the fire dragon apart. Hua! The spectators clutched their chests in shock. This barbaric power was truly stimulating. After being strengthened by the Source Soul, House Killblade's speed had increased as well. It was impossible to see him clearly as he flashed here and there. It seemed as if he was looking for a suitable angle to attack Qin Hao. Based on his ghostly movement technique and ruthless claws, anyone below the Yuan Venerate level would die if they took a hit. Even an early-stage Yuan Venerate wouldn't be able to keep up with House Killblade's rhythm and could only passively take a beating. As expected of a Source Soul ranked 37th on the Beast Soul list, Qin Hao nodded solemnly. Although he was standing quietly in place, his eyes were darting left and right quickly. House Killblade's speed was so fast that it was almost impossible to catch him with the naked eye. The only way was to lock onto his aura. Right. Qin Hao didn't hesitate to throw a heavy punch when he suddenly sensed a violent fluctuation in the space to his right. His fist was quickly covered in dragon scales. If he didn't use his dragon soul power, his physical body wouldn't be able to withstand the opponent's claws, even if it had been tempered by the indestructible Samsara technique. Clang! There was a piercing sound. Qin Hao's punch accurately hit House Killblade. However, it didn't send him flying. Instead, House Killblade's claws grabbed his fist tightly. House Killblade sneered as it grabbed Qin Hao's fist. At the same time, it waved its left claw fiercely, and a sharp edge swept across Qin Hao's cheek. Qin Hao roared as his robust internal energy combined with the Dragon Jade technique poured into his right arm. A dazzling golden light vibrated from his fist and forcefully repelled House Killblade's grip. His body leaned back slightly, and he narrowly avoided the opponent's claw light. Yi Wuhin and the others broke out in cold sweat when they saw this scene. Fortunately, Qin Hao had managed to avoid it. Otherwise, his head would have been sliced open. Even so, his face was still scratched by House Killblade, and 3 streaks of blood appeared. Fresh blood slowly seeped out and slid into the corner of Qin Hao's mouth. Ha ha ha! Qin Hao, don't you have an outstanding defense? How did you become a cat with a dirty face? Ha ha ha! Although it didn't achieve the desired effect, Clearblade immediately used a body flicker technique, turning into a blur as it fled. It didn't give Qin Hao a chance to counterattack. During this time, House Killblade began to look for a place to attack. Seeing this, Tian Shulin finally nodded with satisfaction. House Killblade had gained the upper hand. In contrast, Yao Lao began to worry. He was very familiar with Qin Hao. Qin Hao's speed was fast, but it would be difficult for him to catch up with House Killblade, who used the flash leopard technique. What a sinister thing! Qin Hao licked the corner of his mouth with his tongue and spat the blood on the ground. House Killblade was very cunning and much smarter than Tian Buguan. Indeed, Qin Hao estimated that even if he used the water wind steps, it would be difficult to catch up with House Killblade. At most, the two of them would chase each other in circles. That would take too much time. Qin Hao didn't have time to play with him, because Senior Shun Tianfeng couldn't wait to fight. In that case, you should also see my flame body. Qin Hao clenched his fist and roared. A huge wave of fire rose from the soles of his feet and swept out with a whoosh. Gradually, his body began to become illusory, and finally turned into a fire shadow. In such a high area, House Killblade's movement would be seriously affected. Outside the field, Tian Shulin watched Qin Hao turn into a fire shadow. He secretly clenched his fist and felt very uncomfortable, because once his grandson also knew this move. However, the House Killblade was very easy. He did not put Qin Hao's flame body in his eyes and continued to move quickly. When Tian Buwang went to the Zhanyue mansion to study, the two of them had a private competition. At that time, Tian Buwang used this move and was finally defeated by House Killblade. Qin Hao was simply courting death. Flash Leopard 3000. House Killblade's roar sounded in the field. Immediately, everyone saw a blurry afterimage that began to spin quickly around Qin Hao. This afterimage didn't get close to the flames, but rotated outside of the flames. Along with the rotation, a strong gust of wind blew. The wind was very strong, causing the flames on the ground to dance wildly. As they danced in the air, the flames immediately disappeared. Qin Hao, who was standing in place, gradually couldn't maintain his flame body under the strong wind, and the red lotus fire left his body bit by bit. What amazing speed! I didn't expect House Killblade to be able to increase his speed to such a terrifying level. Qin Hao was a little helpless and couldn't stand still. House Killblade didn't dare to attack rashly because of the fire caused by the flame body. However, the opponent was too fast and a strong wind blew. Wind restrained fire. This was Qin Hao's miscalculation. Let's see how long you can last. Once the flames are blown out by me, you will receive a fatal blow. If the camera was slowed down at this time, one could see House Killblade like a dog, crawling on the ground with all four limbs. With Qin Hao as the center, he constantly ran around and attacked. As he ran, his two front claws emitted a bright light. The light was very turbulent, and it was obvious that his big move was about to finish charging. Chapter 800. Now's the time. Soul-seizing leopard shadow shatter. Finding the right time, the house-killing blade stopped creating the wind. His body suddenly turned 90 degrees and shot towards Qin Hao, aiming right at his back. Soul-seizing leopard shadow shatter. This was the Flash Leopard's source spirit talent. The moment it hit the enemy, its strength would increase by 5 times. The flames on Qin Hao's body were blown away by the wind, revealing his weak body. The house-killing blade's claws fiercely stretched out. His mouth had a fierce smile as he stabbed towards Qin Hao's back. It was as if he could already see that in the next second, Qin Hao's entire body would be cruelly torn apart. See Isla. The sound of clothes being torn apart reverberated through the field. Everyone was suffocated, not daring to breathe as they stared at the scene in front of them. Qin Hao had been hit, but he was not torn apart by the house-killing blade. At the critical moment, a layer of golden scales spread out from Qin Hao's back. These golden scales were very dense, very sacred, and seemed indestructible. But they were still torn apart by the sharp claws of the house-killing blade. 6 wounds appeared on Qin Hao's back. The wounds were very deep and shocking. Blood flowed out, dyeing his back red. Qin Hao. Chen Wanqin couldn't help shouting from outside the field, her eyes filled with worry. Yi Wuhan stepped forward to block her, shaking his head at her, indicating that he couldn't interfere. Moreover, Yi Wuhan wasn't nervous at all. Including Nalan Li and Naransu, they were all very calm. Han Man even laughed and muttered, "This house-killing blade is finished. This move will definitely enrage the Alliance Master." Speaking of which, this house-killing blade is more skilled than Tian Buguan. He actually used a Source Spirit martial skill to destroy the Alliance Master's second Source Spirit. Han Man didn't know if he should praise house-killing blade or feel sad for him. In fact, even if he had injured Qin Hao, it wouldn't have been of any use, because Brother House still had a third Source Spirit. How is this possible? House-killing blade stood behind Qin Hao with a stunned expression. Qin Hao should have been torn apart. No cultivation technique or armor below the Yuan Venerate level could block his claws. Could it be the scales that appeared on Qin Hao's body weren't the effects of a cultivation technique, but his second Source Spirit? In the next moment, Qiandao subconsciously cried out. Congratulations, you guessed right. You are indeed not bad. You relied on your physical body's claws to tear apart my dragon scales. The wound is so deep and even made me bleed. You are indeed stronger than Tian Boiwang. You are even fiercer than any of the enemies I have fought. But it was meaningless, because... Eye-opening. Qin Hao turned his head. At first, he spoke in a low voice, but in the end, he roared. The roar was so strong that it caused Qiandao's ears to ring. His mind was in chaos, as if he had been roared by a dragon. What happened next shocked him. He saw a watery glow emerge from the bottom of Qin Hao's feet. The watery glow slithered around his body like a snake and slid past the wounds on his back. Those wounds healed miraculously at a visible speed. In the end, not even a scar was left behind. F***CK. F***CK. This is fake, right? Some people outside the arena couldn't help but curse in amazement. Qin Hao's powerful self-healing ability was an eye-opener. It was even better than eating elixirs. Tian Shulin was so shocked that he couldn't say anything. Although his clone had witnessed Tian Boiwang's death, he hadn't seen how he had been defeated by Qin Hao. At this moment, he finally understood. How could this happen? No one has ever healed the wounds caused by my innate martial technique, yet you've healed them all in one go. House Killing Blade's heart shuddered violently. He couldn't accept the reality before his eyes. According to this analysis, no matter how serious Qin Hao's injuries were, he could recover quickly. He simply couldn't be killed. Monster. These two words quickly appeared in House Killing Blade's mind. Now, it's my turn to counterattack. Dragon power. As Qin Hao's words fell, his body once again shone with golden light. The light enveloped him, and the raging Yuan Qi made House Killing Blade, who was closest to him, unable to stand steadily. He took several steps back. He was shocked to find that under the nourishment of the strange watery mist, the damaged dragon scales on Qin Hao's back had regenerated. Even the strength of his aura was stronger than before. It wasn't just Qin Hao's back. His shoulders, legs, chest, and even half of his face were covered in dragon scales. He looked ferocious and terrifying. Even Qin Hao's body had unknowingly become much stronger. The two large muscles on his chest were about to burst the dragon scales. His height had reached almost 3 meters. This. Could it be the legendary warrior that disappeared, known as the strongest warrior on the continent? Dragon warrior? The various sect leaders outside the arena were panicking. They all pointed at Qin Hao in the arena. It was rumored that in ancient times, there was a group of experts who had the sacred blood of humans and dragons flowing in their bodies. All of them had monstrous abilities, and their strength was several times stronger than those of the same level. It was said that the dragon warriors with the best aptitudes could jump an entire realm. They could kill kings at the saint level, and they could kill venerables at the king level. In fact, the birth of the dragon warrior was also the reason for the extinction of the dragon race. Because they were too violent, they even dared to challenge a giant dragon. Chapter 801. A Dragon Warrior? Impossible. The dragon race is all dead. How can it be a dragon warrior? Even if you are a dragon warrior, you will still have to submit to me. It was unknown whether Qiandao was too scared or too agitated. As he spoke, he attacked Qin Hao without any rhyme or reason. However, this time, he did not get what he wanted. Qin Hao simply turned around and slapped him hard. Bang! A dull thud was heard as the powerful slap landed on Qiandao's face. His mouth was crooked and his eyes were slanted. His brain was in a mess, and his neck was stretched out like a crowing rooster. He turned into an afterimage and crashed into a wooden building in the inner pavilion. Hiss! The power that Qin Hao displayed caused the spectators to suck in a cold breath. A peak Yuan monarch who had awakened his primordial spirit could not withstand a slap from a fourth-order monarch. Without a doubt, it confirmed their guess that Qin Hao was definitely a legendary warrior. This time, Tian Shulin could not sit still. He secretly increased his primordial energy and was ready to attack. He could not let Qiandao die in front of a Star Moon Academy student. Otherwise, even if his son, Tianduo, was the great elder of the Zhanyue constabulary, he would not be able to withstand the anger of the sect. Your attacks seem fierce, but your advantages are only in speed and surprise attacks. Your weakness is that your body is too weak. Qianhao was not in a hurry to pursue. In his eyes, Qiandao had no chance of winning. Bang! A figure jumped out of the collapsed wooden building and floated in midair. Qiandao wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He looked very miserable. Half of his face was red and swollen, and 3 of his teeth were missing. However, after being slapped by Qiandao calmed down. He took a deep breath and nodded. Yes, your analysis is correct. If we fight head-on, I will not be able to withstand your heavy attacks. Qianhao's dragon form roar was very powerful. Qiandao admitted this point, but the corners of his mouth slowly curled up as he pointed below and laughed sinisterly. You can't maintain your dragon form forever, right? So, his voice suddenly paused before he shouted, Phantom Leopard 3000. Shwa 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 shwa. Following the movements of the house-killing blade's palms in front of his chest, he had activated his ultimate source spirit martial skill. Everyone could see that one shadow after another separated from the main body of the house-killing blade, densely filling the air like locusts. The sky was dark, and it was impossible to count them. Qing. Each of these shadows contained the aura of Qiandao's true body. In fact, at this very moment, even hundreds of thousands of pairs of eyes wouldn't be able to find the real Qiandao. These shadows were exactly the same as the house-killing blade, and they also possessed the attack power and martial skills of his main body. At the same time, he would also gain a terrifying speed ability. Furthermore, Qianhao also felt that even if he could find the real body of the Qiandao among the thousands of phantoms and kill it, he would still be able to kill it. At that moment, the house-kill blade would also transfer to the other shadows, and then return to the original body. Meaning, if he couldn't kill all the phantoms in one move, the house-killing blade would be practically indestructible. This martial technique was indeed abnormal. Almost no one could break it. No wonder this person dominated the entire northern frontier and became the second disciple of the Zhanyue mansion. Even if I have to exhaust you to death, come. With these ruthless words, the house-killing blade moved. Thousands of phantoms attacked at the same time. Each one fell like a ray of light flashing through the air. Their speed was very fast. Thousands of claw lights constantly bombarded Qianhao's body, letting out a burst of ding, ding, dang, dang. Sounds like raindrops falling. Under such a dense attack, Qianhao's body slightly trembled. If it wasn't for the protection of the dragon scales, he would have been instantly turned into minced meat. Even so, with every breath, the dragon scales were quickly breaking. Of course, with the healing of the nether tranquil water, the broken dragon scales continued to grow, continuing to provide Qianhao with defense. But this kind of consumption was undoubtedly a fatal threat, because it was indeed impossible to maintain 100% dragon soul power for a long time. Even the recovery speed of the nether tranquil water had begun to slow down. At this moment, those injuries passed through the flesh and began to damage the inner palace. Qianhao, Alliance Master, Big Brother Qianhao. Looking at Qianhao, who could only passively take a beating, the hearts of Qinhuan Qin and the others were in their throats. The house-killing blade was too difficult to deal with. Although Qianhao had already killed many phantoms with a wave of his hand, he still couldn't find the real body of the house-killing blade. If this continued, it would be useless to kill more. But Qianhao's self-healing ability couldn't keep up with the speed of the other party's destruction. Many of his wounds couldn't be healed. At this moment, it was also incomparably heart-wrenching. Ha ha ha, Yao Chun, is this the genius that you didn't hesitate to fight to protect? Even if Qianhao is a dragon warrior, he is too disappointing, too pitiful, too incompetent. He is really funny. Tian Shulin's mood instantly became better. Praising the house-killing blade as a genius disciple taught by his son, he was really extraordinary. Leopard Huan 3000 soul source talent was really amazing. Not to mention Qin Hao, even 100,000 heroes present would not be able to break through it. Including himself, Dean Shifeng, Dean Quanlong. If they suppressed their cultivation to the same level as the House Killing Blade, they would only be beaten. Qin Hao was dead for sure this time. Humph. In this regard, Yao Lao coldly snorted. At this moment, seeing Qin Hao passively take a beating, he was also very anxious. Chapter 802. This spear was personally forged by Qin Hao for his subordinate, Tuoba Fei Hao. It was engraved with the 8th rank golden flame inscription technique and was a genuine revered weapon. Unfortunately, he was in a hurry to go to the Valley of the God Burial, so the Sky Extinction Spear was not perfectly forged, leaving behind a flaw. If he relied too much on the golden flame inscription technique, his body would be paralyzed for a second. It was this flaw that caused the Sky Extinction Spear's grade to drop and also caused Tuoba Fei Hao's death. However, Qin Hao had already taken his revenge. Moreover, the golden flame inscription technique had been completely repaired by Qin Hao before he came to the Starmoon Academy. After 600 years, I never thought that I would be able to release the strongest light of the Sky Extinction Spear today. General Fei Hao, I will personally demonstrate it to you. Thinking of the past, Qin Hao's heart was filled with heroic spirit. He rushed towards the wedding stage and stretched out his hand to pull out the Sky Extinction Spear. When a spear head was pulled out, it released a dazzling light that made people unable to open their eyes. What Qin Hao needed to do next was to release 100% of the Golden Flame's power before the dragon's power disappeared and destroy all of Qindao's phantoms. What a shocking power! This spear is not ordinary. It is not lower than the king grade. Could it be that Qin Hao wants to rely on the power of this weapon to destroy Qindao's Phantom Leopard 3000? The atmosphere in the arena was once again stirred up. They had overlooked the fact that Qin Hao had brought along this weapon and couldn't help but arouse their curiosity. One after another, they started to speculate whether Qin Hao could rely on this spear to break the Phantom Leopard 3000. Qin Hao had also guessed this point. When the Sky Extinction Spear was pulled out, the golden flame made him feel threatened, so his attacks became even fiercer. In an instant, thousands of claw lights flashed on Qin Hao's body, creating countless sparks. The sound was endless and dense. Following this, the dragon scales on Qin Hao's body fell off even faster. Yao Chun, Yao Chun. Qin Hao's skills are not as good as others, and he's starting to use weapons. Don't you think it's embarrassing? It's a shame that he's a dragon warrior. It's a waste of the noble blood of the dragon race. He can't even defeat my son's disciple. How dare he overreach himself and have evil thoughts about Emperor Zhao's beloved daughter? Ha ha! Old man is dying of laughter. When Tian Shulin mocked Qin Hao, he was actually mocking Yao Lao. You talk too much. A weapon is also a part of one's strength. If you have the ability, why don't you give a king weapon to the House Slaughterblade? Yao Lao snorted. He lowered his head and looked at the battle below. Looking at the Tianju Divine Spear in Qin Hao's hand, he frowned. Was that really a king weapon? Why did Yao Lao feel that this spear was not as simple as it seemed on the surface? This broken spear can't change your fate. Qin Hao, give up. Be obedient and be torn apart by me. Become a stepping stone for my House Slaughterblade to become famous. The House Slaughterblade roared. His eyes became more and more anxious. He wanted nothing more than to make Qin Hao disappear from the world. However, Qin Hao was incomparably tenacious. Even if all the dragon scales fell off and his body was badly mangled, he still struggled and resisted. He did not know how to appreciate kindness. Until the last second, who will become the king? Qin Hao felt the dragon power fading quickly. He jumped up into the air. Midway, he waved the Tianju Divine Spear in his hand. It spun like a wheel of wind and fire, twisting a large number of House Slaughterblades into pieces. These House Slaughterblades were obviously illusions. However, as Qin Hao climbed to an absolute height, a strong light suddenly appeared on the tip of the spear. Tongues of flame turned into a net of electricity that scattered everywhere. A huge golden ball of light with a diameter of 100 meters condensed on the tip of the spear. It was as if Qin Hao's spear had a sun stuck in it. The ball of light immediately caused the house slaughter blade to feel a fatal crisis. He became even more anxious. The illusions that filled the sky madly pounced on Qin Hao like moths to a flame. However, they were all destroyed by the ball of light's flame. Wong. The ball of light stopped expanding and the space shook. Heavenly fire meteor. Qin Hao roared. His right hand grabbed the spear shaft and twisted. With a pop, the ball of light was broken. Immediately, an endless meteor shower flew out from the exploding ball of light. It swept in all directions and covered the illusions in the sky. This move was exactly the same as when Wu Lida had heavily injured the dog spirit. However, in terms of power, the two of them couldn't be compared. This was because the Heaven Great Inscription technique had been perfectly restored by Qin Hao, along with the integration of the Red Lotus Soul Fire and the support of the Heavenly Dragon Force. The meteor shower attacks had been destroyed. The destructive power of a low-level Yuan Venerates attack wasn't inferior to that of a low-level Yuan Venerates attack. Cries of alarm rang out from all directions. The meteor shower was too dense, and the area it covered was too wide. The House of Slaughter's locust-like phantoms were pierced through like paper. Then, streaks of golden flames fell below Starry Moon College. Perhaps it was too much of a coincidence, but it happened to be in the middle of the Starry Moon Academy's disciples, the Mad Dragon Academy's disciples, and the Ten Direction Academy's disciples. As for Chiang Bin, Tai Wanli, and the Grand Alliance's support team, not a single golden flame fell. People couldn't help but admire Qin Hao's ability to control the situation. Boom, boom, boom. A sea of fire rose in Starry Moon Academy's inner courtyard as explosions rang out continuously. Large groups of people were blown up into the sky. The outer courtyard disciples and even the inner courtyard disciples didn't even have time to scream before they disappeared in the light. The festive wedding banquet had turned into a purgatory in the blink of an eye. The golden flames continued to fall, vaporizing the crowd one by one, revealing a large amount of empty space. The golden flames were mixed with a large amount of red lotus fire. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this level of attack was terrifying. Qin Hao, you little bastard, impudent. How dare you? Chapter 803. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Tian Shulin reacted the quickest. He was the first to react. He was not going to save the Academy disciples, but to save Qiandao. He had already seen the phantoms disappear in the rain of fire, leaving only Qiandao. He was in tatters and had also been hit by some golden flame. He was letting out a heart-wrenching scream as he plummeted into the sea of fire below, like a smoking plane. Qiandao had clearly been seriously injured. Falling into Qin Hao's wave of fire meant certain death. But Tian Shulin was still a little late. The chaos caused by Qin Hao's meteor shower was so spectacular that the four of them were stunned. At this critical moment, Tian Shulin, who was still far away, thrust his palm in a certain direction. With a whoosh, a torrential stream of air was stirred up. This stream of air carried the gifts brought by Dean Shi Fong and Dean Quanglong, the Purgatory Tiger Scale armor and the #1 weapon of Western Liang, the God-slaying Glorious Sky Spear, toward Qiandao. The moment Qiandao plunged into the sea of fire, the Purgatory Tiger Scale armor covered him and let out a fierce tiger's roar. At the same time, the moment the God-slaughtering spear was grabbed by the House Killing Blade, a surge of strength chi swept out, blowing away the sea of fire beneath his feet. At this moment, the fully armed Qiandao's aura was strengthened once more. Ha ha! Competing in weapons? Old Man has the Glorious Sky Spear, the #1 divine soldier of Western Liang, and the Tiger Roar armor. Qiandao, kill Qin Hao for me. As Tian Shulin gave the order, he turned around and punched in Yao Lao's direction. He knew very well that Yao Lao would not stand idly by. If he had chased after Qin Hao just now, he might not have succeeded. At this moment, Qin Hao was extremely exhausted after using his ultimate move. His heavenly dragon's power had also dissipated, and he was definitely not a match for Qiandao. After all, Qiandao was wielding the brilliant sky spear and wearing the tiger roar armor. In fact, Qin Hao's enemies were not limited to Qiandao alone. The Dean of the Mad Dragon Legion and the Dean of the Ten Directions Legion, who had lost almost half of their disciples, were like two old lunatics. They had long since charged over while shouting, including the commander of the Whitewater Legion, Yi Longquan. 3 Yuan Venerates and 4 bursting streams of light attacked Qin Hao's position at the same time. Da Fugo, Yao Lao stomped his foot, and the 3-legged golden crow let out a high-pitched cry as it chased after Dean Shifang. If the other party attacked Qin Hao, he would definitely be attacked by the 3-legged golden crow. Unfortunately, there was only one 3-legged golden crow. Even if it blocked Dean Shifang, it couldn't save Qin Hao from his predicament. Yao Lao wasn't worried about this at all. When Tian Shulin flew over, he similarly sent out a palm strike. His cultivation level was 1 level lower than Tian Shulin's, so he had to take this seriously. Yao Lao's 3-legged golden crow. Damn it! Dean Shifang gritted his teeth when he sensed the threat behind him. He had no choice but to give up on Qin Hao and turn around to face the attack. Qin Hao, be careful! Damn it, there are still 2 Yuan Venerates and the Qiandao. Junior brother Han Man, let's go. Yi Wuhin and the others also moved, including Chun Wanqin, to block the Qiandao. They weren't confident in dealing with a Yuan Venerate, but they should be able to put up a fight if so many of them blocked the Qiandao. At the very least, they would be able to relieve the pressure on Qin Hao. He might not die at the hands of a Yuan Venerate if he relied on his powerful physical strength and abnormal self-healing ability. However, Qin Hao was smiling. He didn't move an inch in the face of Yi Longquan and the Mad Dragon Legion's Dean. It seemed like he had given up on resisting. Some people nodded in response. After all, resisting a Yuan Venerate was useless, so Qin Hao was most likely going to resign himself to fate. Your Highness Qin Hao, get out of the way. This scene terrified Tai Wanli. He exchanged glances with the other powerful third-rate sect masters around him. Everyone gritted their teeth and seemed to have made some sort of decision. Then, they rushed forward to intercept the 2 Yuan Venerates. As they flew, they shouted heroically, "Brothers, let's show the value of our lives. The moment has arrived. Fighting for the Dragon Warriors is a supreme honor. As long as Qin Hao doesn't die, Western Liang will definitely rise." Kill! There was a rumbling sound. About 1,000 figures rose into the sky. Every one of them had a cultivation base at the martial sage level or above. The scene was extremely grand and spectacular. Unfortunately, Tai Wanli and the others weren't able to show the value of their lives in the end. Instead, someone was faster than them. It was the old demon. The space in front of Qin Hao fluctuated, and an old demon with a wretched face appeared. He wore a green hat on his head, and he spoke in an extremely coquettish manner. "How dare you offend my master in front of the second master? You 2 old men who don't have chicks when they give birth." As he spoke, the old demon howled and blasted out both his fists at the same time. The Dean of the Wild Dragon Academy and Yi Longquan were startled. Spatial displacement? A Yuan Venerate powerhouse? Although they were startled, they didn't stop moving. Even if the Heavenly Emperor came, he wouldn't be able to stop them from killing Qin Hao. There was a loud bang. The 2 of them stretched out their right fists and collided head-on with the old demon's fists. Immediately, a turbulent ripple spread out for where the 3 of them were fighting, pressing down like a gale. Many of the sect masters who couldn't dodge in time were crushed into meat patties. The power of 3 Yuan Venerates intertwined and simply wasn't something they could withstand. Similarly, the old demon raised his head and spat out a mouthful of blood. He was sent flying thousands of feet away by the combined attack of the 2 Yuan Venerates. The old demon could deal with 1 person, but it was a little too much for him to deal with 2 people. However, after sending the old demon flying, Yi Longquan and the Dean of the Wild Dragon Academy were stunned. They realized that Qin Hao was nowhere to be seen. Where had Qin Hao gone? The two of them exchanged glances. Immediately, their Yuan venerate intent enveloped the entire area and accurately captured Qin Hao's aura. At the bottom right, Ilonkin and the dean of the Wild Dragon Academy turned to look in a certain direction at the same time and shuddered in fear. That was where the house Slaughtering Blade was. Qin Hao was flying toward the house Slaughtering Blade. A bunch of ants. How dare you overestimate yourselves and stop me? In the face of Yi Wuhin, Chan Wanqin, and the others, the house Slaughtering Blade simply waved the harpoon in his hand, and a strong light swept all the elite disciples to the ground. The might of the brilliant sky spear's first divine soldier wasn't to be underestimated. It completely made Yi Wuhin and the others lose their ability to fight, causing them to spit out blood and suffer serious injuries. Ha ha ha, what a good weapon. The house Slaughtering Blade was pleasantly surprised as he looked at the harpoon in his hand and praised it. It was obvious that he was very satisfied with the brilliant sky spear. Tian Dayuo hadn't arrived yet, because he had rushed over in a hurry. Thus, he hadn't had anything handy when fighting Qin Hao. However, he had taken a liking to the brilliant sky spear and the tiger scale armor. They would be considered top-notch weapons in the northern border. Is that so? Since you were so confident, try taking another move of mine. Chapter 804. The House Slaughterer instinctively feared the power of the golden flames and wanted to dodge. Suddenly, he remembered that he was wearing the tiger scale armor and holding the brilliant sky spear. His confidence instantly stabilized. He sneered, "You want to use the same trick again? Do you think I'm afraid of you? In terms of spearheads, I have 2 more harpoons than you. Watch out for my spear." The House Slaughterer shook his wrist and stabbed out with the brilliant sky spear. Buzz! A strong red light surged out from the tip of the spear, colliding with the heaven extinction golden flames. Indistinctly, the red essence chi released by the House Slaughterer was suffused with a faint purple glow. It was obvious that the brilliant sky spear's function was to increase the strength of the user's cultivation. In other words, the House Slaughtered's cultivation had risen from peak Yuan Monarch to pseudo-venerable. Boom! The shocking explosion almost deafened everyone. The sky extinction golden flames and the House Slaughterer's essence chi exploded and dissipated at the same time. However, the speed of the 2 spears did not stop. Following the explosion of sparks, the spear tips collided. What happened next was a shocking scene. All the sect masters clearly saw that the brilliant sky spear, which was known as the #1 weapon on the Western Liang weapon chart, broke after the collision and was crushed in a powder by the sky extinction spear. Oh my god, the brilliant sky spear was broken by Qin Hao. That's the #1 divine soldier on the Western Liang weapon chart. What grade is the spear in Qin Hao's hand? Everyone in the field was shocked. To be able to break the brilliant sky spear, the sky extinction spear was definitely not a monarch weapon, but a venerable weapon. However, there had never been an 8th grade blacksmith in Western Liang. Where did Qin Hao get the sky extinction spear? Could it be that he had refined it himself? The more everyone thought about it, the more fearful they became. Could Qin Hao be an 8th grade blacksmith? But that was impossible. After all, Qin Hao was only a monarch. Even if he knew how to refine weapons, he would at most be a 7th grade blacksmith. He would definitely not be able to refine an 8th grade venerable weapon. In fact, this was something that the House Slaughterer never expected. In front of Qin Hao's sky extinction spear, the #1 brilliant sky spear was as weak as a baby. While he was in a daze, Qin Hao roared and exerted force in his hands. The Tianju spear followed along the shaft of the brilliant heaven spear, cutting through everything like a hot knife through butter. It was only half a foot away from the heart of the House Killing Blade. Needless to say, the brilliant heaven spear would not be able to block the Tianju spear. The tiger scale armor on the House Killing Blade was even more impossible to block. At this time, the shadow of death swallowed up House Slayer's fighting spirit. He couldn't help but cry out in fear, no. But Qin Hao would not stop. "Brat, how arrogant of you." Suddenly, Tian Shulin's voice sounded. In the next second, The figure disappeared in front of Yao Lao and reappeared in front of the house killblade. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the spearhead of the Tianju spear. Looking at the situation, he wanted to twist and break it. And he was indeed caught by Tian Shulin in the nick of time. But after grabbing it, an intense burning sensation came. The flesh on Tian Shulin's palm was instantly burnt. Even his monarch-level yuan, Qi, could not block the golden flames of the Tianju spear. In the next second, he immediately let go. His body twisted and forced himself in front of Qin Hao, pressing his palm toward his head. Danger. Feeling a powerful force coming from the top of his head, Qin Hao wanted to retreat, but it was too late. At the crucial moment, the space in front of Qin Hao trembled violently. Then a gray-robed figure appeared. It was Yao Lao. When Tian Shulin rushed over to save House Killblade, Yao Lao had already caught up. "Break for me," Yao Lao roared. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist, and a shocking attack was launched. Pung! It collided with Tian Shulin's palm. The violent purple yuan, Qi, suddenly spread out, and the two were both forced back. When Yao Lao staggered back, he did not forget to grab Qin Hao's shoulder with his left hand and pulled away from Tian Shulin. Who? Yi Wuhin and the others, who were lying on the ground, heaved a sigh of relief. It was simply too dangerous. Tian Shulin, you shameless old man. You ignored the agreement and interfered in the younger generation's fight. It's one thing to save someone, but you even try to kill Qin Hao. You've thrown away all the faces of the seniors of Star Moon Academy. Yao Lao pointed to the front and angrily rebuked. Agreement? Hee, you're too naive. That was the agreement between Qin Hao and House Kill. The old man did not agree to it. And even if it was an agreement, so what? Today, as long as you dare to step into my Star Moon Academy, the old man will not allow anyone to leave alive. Including you, Yao Chun, all of you will die. Tian Shulin replied confidently. He looked at House Killblade with disdain, as if he was saying trash. Even an idiot could see that House Killblade had completely lost. If Tian Shulin did not make a move, he would already be dead. As for the agreement just now, it was voided. As he spoke, Dean Shifeng, Dean Quanlong, and Yi Longquan floated side by side with Tian Shulin. They were about to launch the final attack. At the moment, the 3-legged golden crow flapped its huge wings and circled behind Yao Lao. The old demon, who had been beaten back, also appeared beside Qin Hao and faced off against Tian Shulin's group. 2 Yuan Venerates and a Peak Beast King were confronting 4 Yuan Venerates. It was obvious that this was an unfair contest. Tian Shulin, I'll give you one last chance on account of the fact that we are of the same generation. Stop. Otherwise, your illustrious reputation will be ruined. Yao Lao squinted his eyes, his sharp eyes exuding a murderous aura. Chapter 805. Not only was he sneering, but he was also mocking him. He knew very well that Yao Lao could not call for help. There was no one he could ask for help at all. No matter how many ants he invited, they could only tremble in front of the 3 deans. Shifeng, Xingyue, and Wild Dragon were practically the sky of Western Liang. Moreover, they had the support of Yi Longquan from the military. Yao Lao, on the other hand, could only mobilize the Elder Group from Qi Yang's cabinet. He had the Elder Group, Xingyue had the Elder Group, Wild Dragon had the Elder Group, and Shifeng, no matter how one compared them. There was no comparison between the 2 sides. One more thing. Qin Hao, you little be***starred, I don't know what kind of opportunity you obtained in the Medicine Valley, but today the senior who destroyed my clone will definitely not come to save you. Tian Shulin was very sure of this. The Medicine Valley and Luo Shui had an agreement that demonic beasts could not come to the human empire without permission. Similarly, humans could not easily enter the Medicine Valley without permission. Otherwise, they would be killed without mercy. Therefore, Tian Shulin was not afraid of the Beast Emperor stepping on his head again. Sigh. Qin Hao shook his head. Tian Shulin was really digging his own grave. Even without the Beast Emperor, Qin Hao still had a stronger helper than the Beast Emperor. At this moment, he was a little curious. He vaguely felt that Yao Lao also seemed to have a mysterious power. Qin Hao vaguely guessed something, but he did not know if he guessed correctly. Then, are you going to help the evildoer and insist on doing things your own way? Yao Lao exhaled deeply. There was no way to persuade Tian Shulin. Then he pointed at Shi Feng and Wild Dragon Deans. After all, they were of the same generation. He wanted to leave them a way out. Save it, Yao Chun, don't waste your breath. Shi Feng Academy and Yao Lao are irreconcilable. Today, it's either you or me. Shi Feng Academy spat at Yao Lao. That's right. No matter how big the matter is, it won't change my determination to kill Qin Hao. Wild Dragon Deans clenched their fists so hard that their palms bled. He had to avenge his son, the mysterious golden-robed man. Actually, Wild Dragon Deans were a little envious of Tian Shulin, although everyone had lost a family member. But Tian Shulin was very lucky to be able to take revenge publicly. On the other hand, the dean of the Quanlong Academy had lost his son, but he didn't even have the qualifications to publicize it. In fact, he didn't even have the guts to publicize it. He could only do it secretly. Are you done with your nonsense? I'm going to make my move. At this moment, Yi Longquan's hoarse voice sounded. He was also the one who had lost his son. Since all of you are so stubborn, I, Yao Chun, will go completely crazy today. Yao Lao waved his hand. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Suddenly, the space behind him fluctuated, and one after another, white-haired old men appeared. The auras of this group of old men were very strong. They were much stronger than the third-rate sect leaders led by Tai Wanli, as well as the sect leaders below them. Every single one of them exuded the aura of a king. They were Qi Yang's strongest team, the Cabinet Elders. Ha ha, I thought you had some kind of trump card. Sure enough, you brought out a bunch of useless ants. Tian Shulin shook his head. Everything was under his control. Then he waved his hand. In an instant, the Star Moon Elder Group also rose into the air. They were also a group of white-haired old men. Berserk Dragon Elder Group. The Berserk Dragon President raised his arm. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The Berserk Dragon Cabinet Elders in golden robes joined the battle. Shi Feng Elder Group. The Shi Feng Elder clenched his fists and shouted in a hoarse voice. Suddenly, another group of old men in their 60s lined up in a formation. They floated in the air, and the wings on their backs spread out, stirring up a tyrannical airflow. High up in the sky, the peak combat power of the 4 great academies moved out together. The luxurious team made the sect leaders below extremely excited. Usually, it was difficult for them to even see a single cabinet elder. Now, a total of 40 elders from the 4 great academies had gathered. However, the Star Moon Academy was missing 2 elders. Among them, the 8th stage Yuan King 4th Elder had been killed by Qin Hao in the Medicine Valley. Just now, the 9th Elder had died in Yi Wuhan's hands. Even so, in terms of numbers, Tian Shulin's team still crushed Qi Yang. Do you think that I, Yao Chun, have abandoned myself in the Crimson Sun Medicinal Tower? No, you're wrong. In fact, I'm not idle. I have another identity. Today, I'll let you see my second identity. This is also the proudest thing for you before you die. Cabinet Elder Group, move out. Westerliang Branch Hall Masters, move out. Yao Lao's expression became even more gloomy as he waved his hand again. Wong, 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 Wong. The space around the Star Moon Academy fluctuated violently. One after another, figures appeared from all over the place. These people were wearing the clothes of the Elixir Pavilion. They wore elixir robes and elixir crowns on their heads. Each of them had the demeanor of a transcendent being. The first to appear was a bald, old man holding a dragon-headed walking stick. He was Dan Ji's elder Zhen Kaiwa. Behind Zhen Kaiwa, another 9 figures appeared. Their auras were not weaker than Zhen Saiwa's. There were even 3 old men who looked even older than Yao Lao. Their auras were faintly emitted from them. These 10 figures were only Elder Dan Ge, who was in charge of the Luo Shui headquarters. Behind Dan Ji's group of elders, there were about 1,000 branch hall masters in purple robes. The cultivation bases of these hall masters were uneven. Some were strong, and some were weak. Usually the hall masters in the bigger cities had higher cultivation bases. The hall masters in the smaller cities had weaker cultivation bases. However, the weakest was still at the monarch level. As for the 5 hall masters in charge of the most prosperous cities in western Liang, their cultivation bases were not weaker than the 3 pseudo-venerables. The appearance of this force immediately caused a huge commotion in the Star Moon Academy. Tian Shulin and the others widened their eyes and mouths in disbelief. It's actually Danji's men? How is this possible? Yao Chan could easily order around Danji's group of elders and even gather all the hall masters on the same day. What exactly is his status in Danji's inner circle? Ding Shifeng and Ding Quanglong felt immense pressure for the first time. Cold sweat kept flowing down their faces. As Yuan venerate powerhouses, they were not afraid of Elder Dan Ge. However, they could not afford to offend an alchemist. After all, the academy still had to develop in the future. Without Dan Ge to provide elixirs, the quality of the disciples they nurtured would definitely decrease. Furthermore, it was said that Danji's pavilion master was someone with a high cultivation base. Chapter 806. At this moment, with the involvement of Danji's forces, both sides had undergone earth-shattering changes. Qiang Bin, who was at a disadvantage, instantly became like a fat man who had eaten too much. They became strong and powerful, and their numbers were incomparably large. Even if their peak experts were still unable to contend against the 3 academies, at least their core forces could easily crush the 3 elder groups of the other side. The various sect masters who came from all over western Liang exclaimed in satisfaction. Today, they were lucky enough to see such a magnificent lineup. It could be said that this was the first time in the history of western Liang. They never expected that the giant Dan Ge would also be involved. The Qiang sect disciples led by Yi Wuhan all clenched their fists and looked excited. Their eyes were burning with admiration as they looked at the alchemists in robes all over the sky. Then, they looked at Yao Lao with incomparable respect. They also didn't expect that their vice president was actually a high-level member of Danji's internal department. With just a wave of his hand, he commanded the most elite alchemists in western Liang to participate in the battle. Especially the 2 sisters, Naransu and Nalan Li, hugged each other and cried. They were more excited than anyone else. Although they didn't know what position the vice president had in Danji's internal department, since he could command all the alchemists in western Liang, his position was definitely not ordinary. This made the 2 sisters see the light of hope to save their mother. Compared to the excitement of the Scarlet Sun sect's disciples, the disciples of the other 3 courtyards were gloomy. They felt a chill in their hearts. When they felt the terrifying aura released by the thousands of pill pavilion hall masters in the sky, they subconsciously shrank into the crowd. Many of them even silently fled the scene. "Ha, little ancestor, I'm so happy to see you again." Elder Zhun took the initiative to greet Qin Hao as soon as the people from the Dan Pavilion showed up. If one didn't look at his age, one would really mistake him for Qin Hao's grandson. Elder Zhun's ingratiating appearance was so good that if one didn't look at his age, one would really mistake him for Qin Hao's grandson. Behind Jin Kaiwa, the other 9 internal affairs elders lined up in a row and bowed 90 degrees to Qin Hao. In addition to them, over 1,000 hall leaders of the sub-halls uttered the same words, "Greetings, little ancestor." More than 1,000 Yuan kings bowed and shouted at the same time. The voice of the little ancestor was like a thunderclap that reverberated throughout Star Moon Academy for a long time. The scene was spectacular to the extreme, and Qin Hao was forced to show off again. "Awa, I trust you have been well since we last met. Greetings, elders, hall masters, everyone." Qin Hao replied with a smile, appearing very easygoing and friendly. At this moment, he sighed in his heart. As expected, he had guessed correctly. It was no wonder that when he had accidentally met Elder Zhun in the wastelands, Elder Zhun had expressed goodwill for no reason and even tried his best to curry favor with him. He had even not hesitated to fall out with the Shiman clan for Qin Hao. All of this was not because Yao Lao was Qi Yang's vice president at that time. It was because Yao Lao had a very high status in Dange. In fact, Qin Hao's analysis was not wrong. However, he had neglected one point. Zhen Kaiwa was so polite to him and won the respect of over 1,000 hall masters because he cared about Qin Hao's attainments in alchemy. After all, even Yao Lao had praised his alchemy skills. It was because of this that he was supported by so many alchemists. As for Yao Lao's status in Dange, Qin Hao had more or less guessed it. In the next moment, Zhen Kaiwa confirmed his guess. After greeting Qin Hao, Zhen Kaiwa's face was filled with excitement. With an extremely respectful attitude, he wanted to kneel on the ground and bow to Yao Lao's position. He shouted, "Internal Affairs Elder Zhen Kaiwa greets Vice Pavilion Leader." "Greetings, Vice Pavilion Leader." The other 9 elders and hall masters shouted in unison. Boom! The scene exploded into a huge wave. Everyone was dumbfounded. Vice Pavilion Leader? The Deputy Pavilion Master of Yao Lao's Pill Pavilion. Second only to the Pill Pavilion Master? Ha ha ha! Qiang Bin is going to be in the limelight this time. The Vice President is so mighty. Han Man was the first to roar. He was so excited that he punched his chest. In contrast, the Mad Dragon Academies and Academy Masters, Shi Feng's hearts thumped. They felt like they were done for. Just now, they were still praying that Yao Lao's position in Dange would not be too high. They even thought that Yao Lao was not Dan Ji's man. Perhaps he had a close relationship with some important person in Dange. That was why so many alchemists were recruited. However, now that he was the Vice Pavilion Leader, he had the power to control all the alchemists. As long as he gave the order, all the hall masters would fight for him without hesitation and sacrifice their lives for him. Old Man Mad Dragon, what do you think? Academy Master Shi Feng asked with a bitter expression. This Mad Dragon Academy's Academy Master remained silent as he looked at Yi Longquan. The commotion this time was too big, and it was beyond their control. To be honest, they could take on Qi Yang effortlessly. However, they could not afford to take on Dange. They did not dare take on him either. If Yi Longquan wanted to withdraw, the Mad Dragon Academy Master would have no choice but to leave Tian Shulin's camp and watch Qin Hao die without being able to take revenge. However, it was obvious that Yi Longquan was also hesitant. He frowned. As a Legion commander of the Empire, he actually knew Dange better than anyone else. At the very least, he knew that even Yi Longyuan could not touch Dange. Everyone, please don't panic. Don't be scared by Yao Chun. A small elixir pavilion is nothing. He has the elixir pavilion, and I have my son Tian Daoyuo. My son has the support of the Zhanyuan mansion in the northern borderline. The pill pavilion is nothing. In my opinion, they're just a bunch of trashy alchemists in front of the 3 great Yuan venerates. He is just a piece of SH*T that can't even withstand a single blow. Tian Shulin saw that the 3 of them were wavering and immediately brought up his son. This sentence described Dange as a piece of SH*T, which undoubtedly offended all the alchemists present. However, Tian Shulin did not care at all. He then added, Yao Chun is Dan Ji's deputy pavilion master. In fact, Old Man was also very surprised. But so what? You all know very well that Dan Ji's pavilion master identity is very mysterious. No one even knows if he is a man or a woman. The disappearance of Chief Dean Granny Gue Hua is one of the 3 biggest secrets of Luo Shui. In Old Man's opinion, all of this is unfounded and could be a scam. As for Yao Chun, he is very likely Dan Ji's strongest powerhouse and does not have a pavilion master backing him. Even if he does, how can he be compared to the Beheading Moon Mansion? No matter how great Dan Ji's influence is, it is limited to Western Lyon. The Beheading Moon Mansion in the northern border has as many powerhouses as there are clouds. Venerables walk the streets, and Yuan monarchs are as numerous as dogs. Their foundation is so strong that even 10 Dan Jis cannot compare to it. Therefore, the 3 of you must unite with me. Qian Dao has already said that my son, Daluo will be here soon. The Tian family will bear all the consequences. What we need to do now is to kill Dange and get rid of this malignant tumor in Western Lyon. They are just a bunch of trash alchemists. What is there to be afraid of? Tian Shulin gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with incomparable madness. Chapter 807. Chief Dean Tian is right. It's just a group of king-level alchemists and 5 pseudo-venerables. I can destroy them all by myself. Yi Longquan said. Tian Shulin's words were like a tranquilizer that woke him up. After all, the Tian family would have to bear the consequences no matter how big the commotion was. The Tian family had the support of the Zhanyue Manor. In that case, let's do it. Kill them all. Chief Shifeng nodded and was rather excited. He had never thought that he would be able to destroy Dange. If he could really do so, then he would add another layer of glory to his name. All right, everyone attack together. Old Man will block that vulgar old man. Chief Shifeng, you hold back Yao Chen's 3-legged golden crow. Chief Dean Tian, you hold back Yao Chen. Let Corps Commander Long Kuan kill 1,000 Yuan monarchs and the 5 pseudo-venerables by himself. We will win this battle. Chief Shifeng drew up a battle plan. This plan made Yi Longquan feel as if he had eaten **T. He had only wanted to brag just now. In fact, as a Yuan venerate, he could slaughter Danji's entire army by himself. Even so, he would be exhausted and might even be injured. If word got out, how could he lead troops in battle? However, since he had already bragged, Yi Longquan could only swallow his pride. Ha. All right, on behalf of my son and the Zhanyue Manor, I thank the 3 of you for your kindness today. We will repay you after this. Now, Qin Hao, prepare to die. Old man, Yao Chun won't be able to protect you. Tian Shulin shrieked and was the first to make a move. A Yuan venerate's attack was terrifying and almost couldn't be seen clearly. In a flash, he suddenly closed in on Qin Hao's position and surging Yuan Qi blasted over without reservation. This time, Yao allowed him to make a move to stop him. Tian Shulin and the other 2 old men's plan was beautiful. But how could it be so easy to destroy Dange? Yao Lao just shook his head repeatedly and lamented that Tian Shulin was completely done for today. However, Chun Wanqin, Yi Wuhin, and the others were anxious. They saw that Tian Shulin had already rushed over, yet Yao Lao didn't make a move to block him. Also, why was Qin Hao standing there foolishly and letting Tian Shulin kill him? He didn't resist at all? In fact, Qin Hao didn't need to hide. There was no need to hide at all. This was because someone had been hiding behind him for a long time. However, this person's cultivation was too strong. For a moment, even when Tian Shulin and the others were immersed in their crazy plans, they did not notice. At that moment, that person also moved. In a flash, he appeared in front of Qin Hao. Then there was a loud bang. Tian Shulin, who was rushing over, seemed to have hit a wall of air. His whole body bounced back. Due to his carelessness, he almost fell on his but in a sorry state. Spatial teleportation, another Yuan venerate powerhouse. Yi Longquan and the others, who were about to attack, were stunned. Another expert from the other side had come, who plotted against the old man. Despicable and shameless thing. Tian Shulin cursed angrily and looked forward. An old man in a loose white robe suddenly stood in front of Qin Hao with his hands behind his back. It was this old man who had overturned Tian Shulin. He was 8 feet tall and had a chiseled face. It was not difficult to see that he had been very handsome when he was young. Through his loose robe, one could vaguely see that his body was thin. However, when this person stood in the air, he was like a peerless sword that had not been unsheathed. His whole body exuded a shocking sword intent. It was hard to imagine how terrifying it would be if he made a move. Star Moon, Shun Tianfeng. Shun Tianfeng said indifferently as he stared coldly at Tian Shulin as if he was looking at an ant. Crack! These words were like a thunderbolt that exploded on the scene. Everyone was so shocked that they almost jumped up. Shun Tianfeng? It was rumored that he had become famous 200 years ago and was known as one of the three legendary peerless swordsmen of Western Liang, along with the Sword King and the Sky Sword Elder. Furthermore, Shun Tianfeng was the previous dean of Star Moon Academy. However, all the sect masters present knew that Shun Tianfeng was already dead. Could this old man who had appeared in front of them be a ghost? For a moment, everyone, including Tian Shulin, was dazed and unable to react. Qin Hao rubbed his nose and chuckled as he looked at Senior Shun, who was wearing a clean robe and had combed his hair and shaved his beard. He looked completely new, as if he had been reborn. It had to be said that this style was quite like a grandmaster's. Just this bearing alone was enough to make people gasp in admiration. It was hard to imagine how outstanding Senior Shun had been 200 years ago. During this period, Shun Tianfeng had relied on the menstrual replenishing grass and the medicinal herbs that Qin Hao had plundered in the Medicine Valley to completely recover from his internal injuries. Although he had been seriously injured for 200 years and had become a cripple, Shun Tianfeng's pursuit of swordsmanship had not stopped. He was always thinking about revenge. In that dark cave in the Forest of Darkness, he kept deducing the supreme sword techniques in his mind. Although he had been crippled, his meridians had been repaired and his physical body was healthy. He also possessed the terrifying strength of a level 6 Yuan Venerate. As a level 6 Yuan Venerate, he was very refined and only cultivated the sword. His entire body was integrated into the sword path, and the explosive offensive power was extraordinarily strong. Shen Tianfeng, the peerless genius from our Fengli Temple? How? How is this possible? Chen Wanqin had mixed feelings. She was a little in disbelief. Shen Tianfeng had been dead for 200 years. Why had he suddenly appeared in Starry Moon Academy and blocked Tian Shulin for Qin Hao? For a moment, she couldn't wrap her head around it. Yi Wuhin and the others looked at each other strangely, as if they were sleepwalking. As a junior, Shun Tianfeng's name only existed in legends. Now that someone had suddenly stood in front of them and claimed to be Shen Tianfeng, how could they believe it? This was also the thought of all the sect masters present. This person can't be an imposter, right? But he defeated Chief Dean Tian in one move. Regardless of whether it's true or not, let's wait and see. There was a lot of discussion. In the face of everyone's doubts, Shen Tianfeng did not respond, and Qin Hao did not step forward to explain, because they only needed to prove it with their actions. In fact, at this time, there was already a Starry Moon Academy's inner court elder who did not know his own strength and pointed at Shun Tianfeng's nose and scolded. "Where did you come from? You put on airs in Starry Moon Academy's territory and pretended to be our late Chief Dean Shun. You even attacked our beloved Tian Shulin. Chief, do you know how to write the word death?" Noisy. Shen Tianfeng suddenly turned his head and looked at the Starry Moon Academy's inner court elder. Swish, swish. Two powerful rays of light flew out of his eyes and pierced through the elder's chest. The person who spoke on behalf of Tian Shulin fell to the ground like a tattered cloth bag and smashed into a pile of mud. "No matter who I am, as an expert, you should respect me. Could it be that the elders of Starry Moon Academy have fallen so low that the etiquette they should have in front of experts no longer exists?" No wonder Qin Hao said that Starry Moon Academy was filthy. At first, I didn't believe it, but now I do. It seems that we have to completely clean up the management of Starry Moon Academy and clean up the trash who spouted sh*t. And Shen Tianfeng pointed at Tian Shulin. "You're just an outer court bootlicker. Why do you have to be the chief dean of Starry Moon Academy? It's Sunset Blade who gave you the courage, right?" When the words Sunset Blade came out of Shun Tianfeng's mouth, Tian Shulin's face had already turned pale. He was sweating profusely and trembling all over. At this moment, he was sure that the elder in front of him was indeed Chief Dean Shun. When Tian Shulin was still an outer court elder, he had already become the supreme existence of Starry Moon Academy. Chapter 808. This pair of eyes gave him the confidence to remain calm. Therefore, he had to act. He pretended to be emotional and even squeezed out 2 drops of tears from the corners of his eyes. He said, "Chief Dean Shun, is it really you? You're finally back. That's great. Back then, everyone thought that you'd gone mad while cultivating, and in the end, you'd refined yourself. The entire academy was in great pain. The entire academy mourned for you. But the academy can't be without a leader. For more than 60 years, I worked hard for the academy's development. In the end, I was fortunate enough to be elected as the new chief dean by the elders. In fact, I'm quite ashamed. As for Sunset Blade, what is Sunset Blade? I don't know. Also, since you're back, I have to return the position of chief dean to you. Qin Hao brought Qiang's people to cause trouble. Chief Dean Shun, you must kill them all." Tian Shulin spoke in a tearful voice, pushing the problem of dealing with Qin Hao to Shun Tianfeng. Qin Hao chuckled. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen someone as whimsical as Tian Shulin. Was there something wrong with his brain? Let Senior Shin deal with Qiangbin. Oh, did I remember wrongly? There's no Sunset Blade in the academy? Shun Tianfeng pretended to be puzzled, but he sneered in his heart. Since Tian Shulin wanted to act, he didn't mind playing with him. There really isn't. It's absolutely true. Chief Dean Shun, please quickly suppress Qin Hao and Yao Chun and save Xingyue Academy from this disaster. Tian Shulin pleaded repeatedly. Okay, come closer to the old man, tell me in detail about the conflict between Qin Hao and Xingyue. The old man will support you. Shen Tianfeng's floating body descended and waved at Tian Shulin. Tian Shulin didn't move. I asked you to come over. Are you deaf? Get over here. Shen Tianfeng shouted angrily, full of dignity. His voice was mixed with terrifying sword intent. It spread out like countless sharp swords colliding in one's ears, making one's brain churn. Shen Tianfeng, I respect you as a senior, so I treat you with respect. If you take the initiative to help me kill Qin Hao, I will give you the position of the chief dean. However, you actually dared to yell at me and order me around. Do you really think that I'm still a small elder and that you are still the former Sorgatchen? Is that so? Tui. Tian Shulin spat out a mouthful of thick phlegm. He was not afraid of the other party at all. When the two of them had exchanged blows, he had analyzed Shun Tianfeng's cultivation base. He was only a 6th level Yuan Venerate and was on par with Yao Lao. Tian Shulin was a level 7 Yuan Venerate. You finally can't pretend anymore, can you? Shen Tianfeng smiled coldly and said, Okay, cut the crap. It's impossible for me to deal with Qin Hao. I came here today specifically to kill you. Shen Tianfeng, you think too highly of yourself. I, Tian Shulin, am not the Tian Shulin of the past. Fine. I try to persuade you, but you insist on courting death. In that case, I will send you on your way. Tian Shulin looked at Yulong Kuan and the others. The situation has changed a little. I will deal with Shun Tianfeng. Dean Shifeng, you will hold back Yao Chun and the 3-legged golden crow. Dean Quanglong, you will deal with the wretched old man wearing a green hat. As for Commander Longkuan, you will deal with Dan Ge and his men. We will kill. As soon as he said the word kill, Tian Shulin turned into a gust of black wind and swept toward Qin Hao once again. No matter who came, they could not stop his determination to kill Qin Hao. Seeing this scene, the disciples of Star Moon Academy were in a mess and did not know what to do. 2 chief deans had appeared. Even the members of the Star Moon Academy's elder team were looking at each other. Shen Tianfeng and Tian Shulin had been talking and laughing just now, but now they were tearing each other apart. Who should they help? In the blink of an eye, in the face of Tian Shulin's surprise attack, Shen Tianfeng was about to make a move. However, suddenly, the sky above Star Moon Academy fluctuated again. This time, the fluctuation was much more violent than any of the previous ones. Who dares to spout nonsense and kill the disciple of Dan Xian? Boom! A cloud of dust exploded in the air. Accompanied by an extremely angry roar, a figure flew out of the black smoke like an arrow. It was an old man with dirty hair and tattered clothes that were covered in countless patches. He looked like a beggar. As soon as he appeared, a terrifying aura was released. A huge pressure instantly suppressed the entire place, causing Shun Tianfeng, Yilonquin, and the others to turn pale. This aura was too shocking. He was stronger than any of the Yuan Venerates present. He was a peak Yuan Venerate powerhouse and was probably only a bottleneck away from the Monarch level. Apart from Qin Hao and Chen Wanqin, no one present did not know who this old man was. No one knew which lucky person his so-called disciple was. However, everyone saw this old man descend from the sky and mercilessly kick Tian Shulin in the mouth with his bare feet. This blow was earth-shattering. For the first time, Tian Shulin, who used to be incomparably dignified, let out a blood-curdling scream and spat out a bunch of teeth. It was a loud boom. He was trampled to the ground by the old man's feet. "Master!" Qin Hao's eyes immediately moistened. This domineering figure was Dan Xian. It was the old man who had disregarded all his injuries to refine medicine so that his disciple could win the competition. It was the teacher who had offered the most precious thing in his life to his disciple without holding anything back before his death. It was the lunatic who had dared to disregard everything and challenge anyone as long as his disciple said the word. The scenes of the past were still vivid in his mind. Become my disciple, and you won't need to cultivate. One Yuan strengthening pill will allow you to reach the Yuan gathering realm. Become my disciple, and your status will be transcended. No one in the entire Fengli Temple will dare bully you. If anyone dares to touch you, the old man will exterminate their entire family. Become my disciple, and you will have a group of beauties to choose from. Even the daughter of the sect master can. What if someone dares to bully me? There's nothing to say. The old man will kill him. This was Dan Xian's promise. It used to be. It was still the same now. That was why he was so angry. Therefore, the moment he woke up and opened his eyes, he did not even have time to change his clothes. He immediately tore through space and rushed to the scene, stepping on Tian Shulin in front of Qin Hao. At this moment, after Dan Xian appeared, countless figures fell out of the shattered space. Xing Er, Xiaogua, Chun Kang, the drunkard Log, Qin Shilong, Hai Dafu, Qin Laosi, and the rest of the Qin family were all present. Father. Chen Wanqin's eyes were filled with tears when she saw Dan Xian. When she saw Chen Kang, she could not help but throw herself into his arms. It's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine. Chen Kang hugged Chen Wanqin. His heart, which had been hanging in the air for the past few days, finally calmed down. However, this was not the time to talk. The Qin family, including the drunkard and the rest, were all looking at the scene with cold faces. The others were also dumbfounded. F***CK. All of a sudden, another force appeared. Speaking of which, this force was not small. There was also an old emperor. The people standing around the old emperor were all dressed in luxurious clothes. It was just that they did not know which empire's royal family they were from. However, the most shocking thing was undoubtedly Dan Xian, who stepped on Tian Shulin. Yilonquin and the dean of the Mad Dragon School were so scared that they did not dare to move. Chapter 809. He didn't know the old man, so he didn't have the guts to provoke the disciple of a peak Yuan Venerate. After all, the other party was a quasi-emperor level expert. You dare to do it, but you don't dare admit it. How dare you be the dean of an academy? How dare you claim to be one of the top 5 experts in Western Yang? You bully the weak and fear the strong. Uft. Dan Xian was extremely disappointed with Tian Shulin. After he had awakened, he had heard Chen Kang's description of Tian Shulin. Tian Shulin was an extremely difficult person to deal with. He could do whatever he wanted in Western Liang, and no one dared to point fingers at him. He had even put his precious disciple in danger and forced Wanqin to get married. At first, Dan Xian had thought that Tian Shulin had some ability. But from the looks of it now, Bonehead had no dignity at all. Dan Xian spat on Tian Shulin's face in disappointment. Then he slapped Tian Shulin in front of everyone, causing him to wobble left and right as he begged miserably. This scene made the various sect masters stare in disbelief. Star Moon Academy's Chief Dean Tian had been slapped by an unknown old man. Not only did he not resist, but he even repeatedly begged for mercy. This completely overturned everyone's impression of him. The disciples and elders of Star Moon Academy simply covered their eyes and didn't have a face to watch. This slap alone was enough to make Tian Shulin lose all face and bring shame to Star Moon Academy. In comparison, Principal Shi Fong and Principal Guanglong looked at each other and saw the word unbelievable in each other's eyes, as if they were asking each other, since when did Western Liang have such a powerful figure as core mystic aside from Emperor Dragon Abyss who had the ability to pluck the fields and forests? Could he be Dan Ji's pavilion master? Could his disciple be Yao Chun? However, based on his age, it didn't seem like it either. In an instant, Dan Xian's identity became a mystery, and his precious disciple became even more of a mystery. Sigh, Master's temper is still the same. He slaps people for no reason. Qin Hao smiled faintly. At the moment, he was slightly surprised by the overwhelming power displayed by Dan Xian when he slapped Tian Shulin. According to his estimation, refining 2/5 of the power of the 9 Revolution Soul Return Pill into the 9 Revolution Soul Return Pill would at most allow his master's cultivation to roughly reach the level of a 5th level Yuan Venerate. This was the maximum that Qin Hao could give. After all, he was only a minor Yuan ancestor before he reached the core profound realm. There were 4 major realms in between: Mortal Saint, Profound Saint, Heavenly Saint, and Origin King. He had never expected that his master would break through to the Emperor realm with the help of the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Pill and the power of the Sovereign Spirit. It must be the work of the Red Lotus Soul Fire and the Great Void Cauldron. Qin Hao nodded inwardly. This was the most reasonable explanation. The Deviant Fire and the Divine Artifact had pushed the 9 Transformations Soul Return Pill to its maximum potential. It was just that he neglected her. There was only one dandy in the world. If it were someone else refining pills, it would be impossible for Dan Xian to be reborn and have such a powerful cultivation. As he spoke, Tian Shulin, under the gaze of hundreds of thousands of eyes, was about to be beaten to death by Dan Xian. At this moment, he no longer looked like a president. Instead, he looked as miserable as a dead dog. "Senior, please stop and spare my life. Even if you want this lowly one to die, at least let this Tian die with a clear understanding of how I have offended you. And who is your disciple? At most, I will apologize to your disciple, and I will kneel down and kowtow to him." Tian Shulin weakly spat out these words. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, staining his clothes and the ground within 3 meters of him. "Huh," Dan Xian sneered. "You want to apologize now? Fine, I will let you die with a clear understanding." After saying that, he proudly stretched out his hand and pointed at Qin Hao's position, as if Qin Hao was the greatest treasure he had found in the world. "That handsome and extraordinary young man is the disciple of the old man, and also the only disciple in my life. You took advantage of the old man's nap and Luo Shui Empire 3 times. You have harmed my disciple 5 times. You have harmed my only disciple. Not only did you bully him in the Rising Star competition, but you also ordered the elders to hide among the disciples and kill Qin Hao in the Medicine Valley. Today, I will not tolerate you." Xiaohua had told Dan Xian everything that had happened. Qin Hao had struggled alone in Luo Shui, where he had no one to rely on. If it hadn't been for Yao Lao's secret grooming, Qin Hao wouldn't have been able to achieve what he had today. Dan Xian was very grateful for this. In fact, he had already nodded in Yao Lao's direction, as if to thank him for protecting Qin Hao on his behalf. Crack! Suddenly, the entire place fell silent. Everyone's jaws dropped to the ground as they pointed at Qin Hao at the same time. Qin Hao's master is actually a peak Yuan Venerate. Besides the Dragon Abyss Emperor, he can be considered the 2nd most powerful person in Luo Shui. How envious of him to have such a powerful master. No wonder he dared to barge into Star Moon Academy so unscrupulously. It turns out that he has someone backing him. Everyone finally understood. However, Qin Hao hadn't dared to come because of Dan Xian. In fact, he hadn't guessed that Dan Xian would wake up today. According to his calculations, Dan Xian would need at least a month to wake up. By that time, the wedding would have ended. Chapter 810. Even Yu Wuhin said, I thought that my master was the deputy president, and that was already impressive enough. However, Qin Hao's master is even stronger. I'm afraid that only a peak Yuan venerate in Western Liang would be qualified to accept a genius like Qin Hao as a disciple. Sigh. While Yi Wuhan was envious, he was also very happy for Qin Hao. However, he didn't know that Dan Xian had begged Qin Hao to be his disciple. Furthermore, he had only been a minor Yuan Zong at that time. Let's not talk about this for now. Tian Shulin immediately understood. So that is the case. No matter how much I calculated, I thought that Qin Hao relied on Yao Chun. However, I didn't expect that there was actually an almighty master who couldn't be provoked hiding behind him. This is my mistake. Cut the crap. I know that you are supported by Shi Run, which is why you're the president. However, why have all the previous elders of Star Moon Academy disappeared? I don't know any of the current elders. Get Shiren out. Today I, Shun Tianfeng, swear that I will cut him into pieces. Shen Tianfeng's words undoubtedly meant that Qi Yang was about to launch an all-out attack. All disciples, attendants, and elders of Star Moon Academy, listen up. I am the previous president, Shun Tianfeng. Today's grudge has nothing to do with you. Everyone back down. Qi Yang. Yi Wuhan raised his fist. Whoosh, whoosh. The disciples all drew their swords. Grand Alliance Backup Group. Taiwan Li roared. Immediately, the people from the third-rate sects were ready to make a move. Dangu. Yao Lao waved his hand. In the sky, thousands of king-level alchemists erupted with Yuan Qi at the same time. Balls of scarlet light illuminated the horizon, and the turbulent fluctuations caused the earth to shake. Everyone, I am the president of 10 Directions Academy. In fact, today's incident was a small misunderstanding. I still have matters to attend to at home. Everyone, I am the commander of the Luo Shui Empire's Whitewater Corps. On behalf of the military, I advise you not to act recklessly. Everyone, I am the president of Wild Dragon Academy. This has nothing to do with Tian Shulin. Almost at the same time, Tian Shulin's allies fell apart. Nothing to do with your sister. Just now, you guys worked together to beat up Second Master. Now that we have more people, I want you guys to bully me with numbers. Today, none of you will be able to escape. The old demon was the Blood Emperor, after all. He had just been suppressed, which was very embarrassing. Now it was time for revenge. He didn't care if Principal Shi Fang agreed or not. Following this, the old demon's hat source spirit flew out and covered Principal Shi Fang's head. Old man Kuanglong, haven't you always found me? Qiang, an eyesore? Come and fight. Yao Lao also moved. His body rose into the air with the three-legged golden crow flying beneath his feet. The man and beast pounced towards the dean. Shirun, let's see how long you can hide. After I deal with you Longkoan, I'll deal with you. Shen Tianfeng pinched his fingers together and formed a circle in front of him with his arm. Suddenly, tens of thousands of sword auras shone behind him. Countless flying swords were arranged like fish scales, so densely packed that it was dazzling. It was Feng Li Temple's unique sword technique, return of 10,000 swords. As he roared, the flying swords in the sky pierced through the sky, stabbing towards Yi Longkoan. Kid, don't participate in the activities of us old people. Go and do what you should do. At this time, Dan Xian, who was stepping on Tian Shulin, turned his head and smiled at Qin Hao. His smile was incomparably amiable. Qin Hao's gaze was fixed on Qian Dao, who was hiding in the crowd. Dan Xian could see that there seemed to be a battle between the two of them that had not yet finished. Haha, old man, wait for me, Qin Hao said rather excitedly. Then, the Heaven Extinction Divine Spear spun and went straight for the enemy. He held the end of the spear and stabbed Qin Dao's heart. Do you want to kill me? Or do you want me to kill you? Now I'll kill you, bastard. Who told you to come out and show off? As he spoke, a burst of Heaven Extinction golden flames also spewed out. Grandpa, save me. One of your grandsons died. You can't let a second one die. Come to your senses, quickly self-destruct. Qian Dao was scared out of his wits and kept calling for Tian Shulin. He never thought that after flaunting his prowess in the northern borderline, he would be defeated by Qin Hao in the small western Liang. This was the first time in his life that he knew what fear was. What followed next was not as simple as fear, but despair. After losing the brilliant Sky Spear, Qin Dao's tiger scale armor had no chance of blocking the Heaven Extinction Spear. Being pierced through was his only fate. My life is over. Qin Dao simply gave up resisting, dispirited and without any fighting spirit. But suddenly, a sound came from the sky. Kacha, a ray of light. It flashed from a very far place. But in an instant, it blasted into the Starry Moon Academy. In an instant, the whole place was filled with crackling lightning. The electric current was like a ferocious, poisonous snake running everywhere. It seemed to be controlled by someone. The electric current bombarded the Scarlet Sun Disciples team, Tai Wanli's team, and the alchemists that filled the sky. The fastest electric light bombarded Qin Hao's position. This electric light was also the thickest one. Bang! There was an explosive sound. Before Qin Hao's Heaven Extinction Spear could stab Qin Dao, it was blown into pieces by the electric light. An 8th-order venerable weapon could not even withstand a single blow. How terrifying was this electric current? In the next second, the electric current did not decrease and directly blasted towards Qin Hao. Qin Hao, boy, be careful. Dan Xian was shocked. He already felt that the electric current was strong enough to kill a venerable level expert. He no longer had time to care about Tian Shulin. As if he did not care about his life, he opened his arms and pounced in front of Qin Hao. Punk! Chapter 811. Children, be careful. Yao Lao controlled the 3-legged golden crow and rushed to the front of the Qiyang disciples to protect Yi Wuhin's 600 elites. As a strong light exploded on the 3-legged golden crow's back, it fell heavily to the ground along with its beast. Whether you admit it or not, I am still the chief dean of Star Moon. Shen Tianfeng saw many innocent Star Moon disciples being covered by the electric net, but Tian Shulin, who was lying on the ground, did not care. He even clapped his hands and laughed. Shen Tianfeng shook his head and gave up on Yi Longquan. With a wave of his finger, he controlled the flying swords to strangle the electric net. When the crisis came, he took on the responsibility of the chief dean of Star Moon without hesitation. As a result, the Star Moon disciples saw large balls of fire flashing in the sky and colliding with each other. Countless flying swords were shattered and annihilated by the electric net. In the end, Shen Tianfeng also followed in Yao Lao's footsteps and was hit by a bolt of lightning and fell down. Dan Ji's members, listen to Second Master's orders and work with me to set up the boundary. The old monster let out a hoarse cry as he looked at the twisting electric net in the sky with bloodshot eyes. He immediately pulled back the green hat that was flying towards Old Man Shifeng. Then he pushed out a surge of supreme level vital chi with his palms and struck it into his green hat. His green hat expanded bigger and bigger until it turned into a sky-swallowing cauldron that fell down from above. The electric net was raised. Dan Xian, Yao Lao, and Shen Tianfeng, the 3 Yuan venerates, were only affected by it and were seriously injured one after another. However, the power of the electric net that swept over did not diminish. The old demon was the last line of defense. They had to work together to resist the last blow. Otherwise, everyone present would die. Quickly, follow the orders of the wretched senior and work together to set up the boundary. Zheng Kaiwa shouted. He knew very well that the falling lightning had seriously injured the deputy pavilion master and the 3-legged golden crow. Its power was unimaginable. They had to gather thousands of Yuan monarchs with the old demon as the leader to have a fighting chance. Suddenly, the floating alchemists all moved. They pushed out their palms, and wave after wave of king-grade Yuan chi hit Yao Lao's green hat desperately. After swallowing everyone's power, the green hat size increased tenfold and was extremely heavy. It stood in the sky like a mountain, holding up the sky of Star Moon Academy. Kacha, under the dark clouds, the dense electric net finally pressed down. It was as if an army of thousands of men and horses had surrounded the green hat. Wave after wave of lightning bolts bombarded him continuously. This was because he was standing in the middle, and the others were surrounding him like stars surrounding the moon. Their faces were filled with respect. If they were right, the middle-aged man in purple robes was Tian Daluo. This was because there were still flashes of thunder and lightning on his body. It was obvious that he was the one who had unleashed the thunder and lightning. The color of his vital energy was golden. Golden was the symbol of an emperor-level powerhouse. In the next second, Qian Dao prostrated himself in front of Tian Daluo. "Welcome back to Western Liang, Master." "Boo-hoo. Daluo, my child, you are finally here. If you were any later, I'm afraid I would never see old man again." Tian Shulin sat on the ground and cried miserably. His entire body and face were covered in blood, and he looked extremely miserable. "Father," Tian Daluo cried out anxiously and quickly went forward to help Tian Shulin up. Even though he was the great elder of the Zhanyue mansion in the northern borderline, he held a high position and was respected by thousands of people. However, his roots were in Western Liang, and it was Tian Shulin who had given him life. "Greetings, Elder Tian." Behind Tian Daluo, the other three elites of the Zhanyue mansion bowed respectfully like servants to express their utmost respect. Strangely, there was a young man behind the three of them. He was about the same age as Qian Dao, yet he did not bow. Furthermore, he raised his head proudly and nodded at Tian Shulin with a casual expression. It seemed like his attitude was already the highest reward for Tian Daluo's father, Tian Shulin. "Greetings, elders of the Zhanyue mansion." "Greetings, young master." Tian Shulin did not dare delay and immediately returned the greeting. The other party was polite to him on account of his son. He knew very well that if it had not been for Tian Daluo, the four of them would not have even bothered to look at him. Even though he was a high and mighty Yuan venerate in Western Liang, he was nothing in the eyes of the people of the northern borderline. "Master, this man is the murderer of Brother Boguan. He is also the scourge Qin Hao, who almost killed me. However, as your proud disciple, I fought bravely and joined forces with Qin Hao. In the end, there was no clear victor. I even vaguely gained the upper hand and did not embarrass you." Chapter 8:12. "Master, how are you?" Qin Hao had no time to care about him. He quickly pushed Dan Xian away and helped him up. "It's just a small injury. Don't worry, as long as you're safe." Cough, cough. After Dan Xian got up, he coughed out 2 more mouthfuls of blood. Under his torn clothes, there was a bloody hole the size of a baby's fist. One could even vaguely see his internal organs. It was a ghastly sight. At this moment, the old demon, Yao Lao, and Shin Tianfeng also got up one after another. Although they were badly injured, they were still alive. However, looking at Danji's corpses, Yao Lao shook his head in heartache. Creak! In an instant, Qin Hao clenched his fists. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Tian Daluo's face. The sky-extinguishing spear was General Tooba Feihao's relic. It was one thing for the relic to be destroyed. What was unforgivable was that Tian Daluo had injured Dangu, causing Dangu to lose nearly 500 temple masters. That was half of all the temple masters. This was undoubtedly a heavy blow to Dangu. It was likely that Danji's businesses in Western Liang would not be able to operate normally for a long time. Facing Qin Hao's undisguised hatred, Tian Daluo snorted in disdain. "Oh, it's little Luo. Do you still remember me? I'm your uncle Quanglong. It was really dangerous just now. In order to protect your father, I was badly injured. But even if I die, I will stand by your father's side unswervingly, because we are inseparable allies." Seeing how Tian Daluo had defeated the entire Qiang team in one move, the Dean of Quanglong quickly fawned over him. "And me, I'm your Uncle Shifang. Little Luo, do you still remember me? Back then, when you visited our 10 Directions Academy, I even gave you a saint artifact. Today, I'm also your father's ally. Our friendship will last until the end of time. The Shurfang Academy made a solemn vow with a righteous expression. Brother Daluo, is it really you? I'm Long Kuan. Do you still remember 20 years ago, we fought over a girl at the Thousand Flower Building in the Imperial City? That time, you attacked so fiercely that I lost 2 of my teeth. I still remember that grudge. But I didn't expect that you would have such achievements after going to the Northern Frontier. Your powerful cultivation makes me extremely envious. Yi Longkuan seemed to have a very good relationship with Tian Daluo when they were young. They were like brothers who had not seen each other for decades. The moment he stepped forward, he placed his hand on Tian Daluo's shoulder. Take it away. Tian Daluo snorted coldly. Sorry I was rude. Yi Longkuan retracted his hand awkwardly. At this moment, Tian Daluo took out his handkerchief and wiped his shoulder where Yi Longkuan had touched it. After he was done, he threw the handkerchief aside in disdain. He coughed softly to clear his throat and said indifferently, Uncle Quanglong and Uncle Shurfang, right? Once again, a green hat was formed and flew towards Tian Daluo's head. Meddlesome, get down. Tian Daluo was enraged. He flipped his hand and pressed down. Pung! An invisible force caused the flying hat to explode in the air. It was as easy as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. At the same time, the old demon was also pressed to the ground. His entire body sank deep into the stone floor, and he couldn't move. Green Taoist, Hat Taoist, Wretched Taoist, Shin Tianfeng, Yao Lao, and Dan Xian all moved. As they didn't know what the old demon's name was, the 3 of them could only address him as such. However, as soon as they moved, a force descended from the sky and enveloped Shun Tianfeng, Yao Lao, and Dan Xian. The stone floor beneath their feet cracked and sank deep into the ground. No matter how they struggled, they couldn't break free from the pressure of an emperor-level powerhouse. A bunch of Yuan venerate ants. Tian Daluo curled his lips in disdain. How powerful! Damn it! The disciples of the Red Sun sect were anxious but didn't dare step forward. Ha ha ha! This is what happens when you go against me, Tian Shulin. Now you've seen how powerful our nephew Daluo is, right? Yao Chun continued to be impudent. Tian Shulin, Quang Long, and old man Shurfang clapped and cheered. Shin Tianfeng and Yao Chun, who had been extremely troublesome to deal with, were easily suppressed by Tian Daluo. They couldn't even withstand a single blow. You don't know what's good for you. How dare you accompany Qin how to cause trouble? You've already violated the laws of the Empire. I'll officially issue an arrest warrant on behalf of the military. I'll have to trouble Brother Daluo to help me kill these 4 violent old men. Especially killing them in front of Qin Hao. The taste will definitely be very satisfying. Yi Longkuan sneered. This was the best revenge. He wanted to make Qin Hao watch helplessly as the people he cared about died. This was exactly what Tian Daluo wanted. Suddenly, an even more turbulent force surged from his body and surged toward the old demon and the other 3. Stop it, Tian Daluo. Take your people and scram back to where you came from before I lose my temper. At this critical moment, a voice suddenly reverberated in the air. It was incomparably majestic. This voice seemed to be able to shake one's soul. The sect leaders and sect leaders of the major sects were all shaken. Tian Daluo was no exception. Affected by the voice in the air, his mind suddenly went blank. The emperor-level aura he emitted disappeared. Instantly, Old Demon and the other 3 felt relieved. They felt the pressure on their backs disappear into thin air. They stood up one after another. Who's playing tricks? I represent the military. Yi Longkuan couldn't help but shout. The brilliant plan he had provided was ruined. However, before he could finish, he was forcefully interrupted. I'm sorry, but you can't represent the military now. Because from now on, you've lost your identity as the Whitewater Legion's commander. Whoosh! The sound of armor came from afar. Everyone looked toward the source of the sound. Their eyes were drowsy, and there were two lumps of mucus hanging from the corners of their eyes. The way they yawned with their mouths open ruined his glorious image. Even so, the people present were shocked and hurriedly knelt down in fear. "Greetings, Emperor Long Yuan. Greetings, Your Majesty. Greetings, Your Majesty. Greetings, Your Majesty. Greetings, Your Majesty." At this moment, no matter who it was, they were all extremely respectful. For them, Long Yuan was not only the emperor of the empire, but also the most powerful person in Western Liang. He was like a martial god in every martial artist's heart. Of course, Qin Hao and the members of the Qin family didn't kneel down. The four principals didn't kneel down either. Tian Daluo and the others wouldn't kneel down either. Supremacies had the privilege of not kneeling down. Tian Daluo and the others were from Beijiang, so they would only kneel down to Emperor Yan. As for Qin Hao, only others would kneel to him, but he would never kneel to others. Qin Shilong was also an emperor, so he had no reason to kneel down. However, in terms of momentum, he was obviously not comparable to Long Yuan. He kept nodding and bowing to Long Yuan, smiling like a flower. There seemed to be fear in his eyes, but he had to force himself to be brave. It was very funny. You may dispense with the formalities. Long Yuan waved his hand casually, then grinned in Qin Shilong's direction. He guessed that the little old man should be Qin Hao's grandfather, the emperor who had just established the empire. Long Yuan hoped that his warm smile would relieve the pressure on the old man. However, Long Yuan's smile scared Qin Shilong so much that he staggered backward as if he had seen the most terrible demon in the world. He muttered to himself, "The most powerful person in Western Liang smiled at me." The first look he gave me after he appeared really made the old man so excited. Qin Shilong was so moved that he cried. When he was still hiding in Akita town, he knew that the most powerful person in Western Liang was Long Yuan. Long Yuan was the god who supported Western Liang. He was a great hero that everyone respected, and Qin Shilong was no exception. But today he saw his idol with his own eyes, and his idol even smiled at him. How could he not be excited? No matter how excited Qin Shilong was, he was directly ignored by everyone. In fact, Qin Hao, Tian Daluo, and Long Yuan were the main characters at this moment, and they were the focus of everyone's attention. "Long Yuan, I haven't seen you for more than 20 years, and you are still as frivolous as ever." Tian Daluo was not so relaxed, and his expression was unusually reserved. Because Long Yuan's majestic voice could affect his mind, which meant that Long Yuan's cultivation was definitely not lower than his. At this moment, he also spoke very seriously. You, Tian Daluo, right? I remember you.